we're going to have a workshop, we're going to call it to order for SPLOS related to SPLOS and ordinance amendments, and have some general discussion from the board, get some input, so that we can make some decisions as we move forward, get this on some future agendas. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim to share with us what he's prepared for us.
Okay, thank you. This issue, it really is a matter of just cleaning up our zoning procedures as part of our overall zoning ordinance, and it has to do with public hearings. And it came up on an issue where an item was not a zoning map change, but a zoning text change, and whether or not that required to go to the board, the planning board, or that simply goes to the Board of Commissioners. State law just requires that one public hearing. However, our zoning ordinance, our county zoning ordinance, goes the extra mile and requires a public hearing in both the planning board and one in front of the Board of Commissioners. So what we wanted to do was just clarify it a little bit, let you know where the kind of the confusion lies, and our recommendation for how to correct it. And essentially, it really comes down to wording, and what it says notes in our ordinance. It says no official action shall be taken on any proposed zoning amendment unless at least 2 public hearings have been held. The first public hearing shall be conducted by the planning board, and the second shall be conducted by the county commission. So that makes no reference to whether that is a planning map change or a text change. And since it says zoning amendment, that's an ordinance change. And so that really means either. Both probably should go there, since when you change the zoning map, you are changing the zoning ordinance. And so for sake of kind of speeding things along, I believe it was last year, not too long after I had gotten here, that we were discussing simply having the map changes as being the items that went in front of the planning board. And so if that's the case, then we would have to change our zoning procedures when it comes to public hearings. And we can simply do that. We can simply say that zoning map changes will require 2 public hearings, and any zoning text changes will simply go a single public hearing in front of the Board of Commissioners. So that, if you, with that, it's going to require a public hearing, essentially about the public hearing, because we are changing the zoning ordinance. So the interesting about that, this will actually have to go to the planning board before this for a public hearing, because it's now subject to the current county ordinance, and then come back to the planning board to make the decision on the change. And so what I was going to say here, right here. So it's basically we will have a public hearing on a public hearing. We will then change our public hearing procedures, and then it'll take effect at the. There is some we're not clear on that, and maybe Lee can help me with that, is to how does this affect if we change the public hearing requirements on this for items that are already in the, that are already going through the process of rezoning, but
Maybe set an effective date or something?
but, 'cause you know what, but now that I think of it, we don't very often change the text of the ordinance, and so we're not changing the requirement to have the map zonings having 2 public hearings, so I don't think we'll probably get away with not having to cross that bridge, or at least that's what we're hoping on. There's one other recommendation. I was speaking to the clerk about this, and I think it might be cleaner. While our total ordinance, not just our zoning ordinance, does not reference any other public hearings other than the ones associated with rezonings. There are public ordinances, state laws that do require certain public hearings. Budgets, for example, do require a public hearing. So the thought was it would probably be cleaner to require any ordinance changes, whether it's zoning text or non-zoning ordinances, require a public hearing as well. It's not going to require any real additional work on our part. It's going to require the simple requirements of noticing in the Herald, and with the time, place, and purpose of the hearing. And so when we do, and I'm having a hard time finding examples of non-zoning ordinance changes, but the budget is one of them. When we changed the form of government, that was another ordinance change.
How about our fee setting, to set those by ordinance or
What?
resolution? Our fees that we set, they by resolution or ordinance.
I think the fees are resolutions.
That's resolution.
It's been a little different.
And we have to have public hearings when we levy the millage rates.
Yeah.
That's right, but that's a state law requirement, so.
And most of them are going to have state requirements. We just, if there is a gap, we're going to cover it by saying all ordinance changes
That's right.
will have a public hearing. And it doesn't affect us because we always advertise 15 days prior to our meetings only of those type things, or we will.
I'm sorry, I only missed part of what you were saying. I was talking to the
I don't
attorney.
think it's going to impact the time frame in which we can do things because we always advertise these items usually 15 days in advance, don't we?
Zoning requests are advertised.
Other
6
ordinances that we might change, budgets, all that's 15 days before anyway. And it's a big topic, so the issue, I think what Tim's saying is just go ahead and put in there any ordinance, change whatever.
That's right, because I don't think it'll add any additional work for notification. Am I correct on that? And it's just plain safe on it.
We don't have the first and second reading unless we change something in it. But not.
One question I got, and the board may not feel it, I don't have a strong opinion on it either way. I know other jurisdictions have a mechanism for a petitioner to actually petition for a text amendment. Is that worth looking into? Where that would have saved us is on the mini storage. They could have requested a text amendment, and then at the same meeting, it would have been on, assuming that was approved, they could have had an application for that use. It's just an idea. I know other jurisdictions, I know City of Pooler does that. Again, I don't have a strong, it's very effective if it's done properly.
Won't we have the
But that's
opportunity to
just
do
an
that
idea.
if you make this change though? Because it doesn't have to go back before the planning board now. If they want a text amendment, we can advertise 15 days before the next meeting and we can have the public hearing and do a text amendment all at the same meeting. We'll delay it.
And that's, yeah, I mean, I know those jurisdictions that they'll have, where it does go through their planning board or planning and zoning, same process. It's just a different item.
So maybe the text amendments through the planning board and then the board.
And maybe that's just a text amendment that is petitioned by a petitioner. You know, it's just an idea, I don't want to complicate it, but.
Well, I think it would be separate, that we would, well, we would simply be changing the procedures as it relates to public hearings.
Yeah.
That would be a change of procedures again, so we could wrap it up, but it would be a separate item where you can say, here is the process, the procedure for public petition of a zoning text change, a zoning ordinance text change. And here is how it's going to, it will start off with a recommendation from the, I mean, would there always be required to have an applicant? Or if someone wanted to recommend a change for...
It may not affect anybody today. You're saying just, I don't know how other
Okay.
jurisdictions handle that.
And we can look into it.
I think it's worth looking at, because it can be effective, it can prevent situations like that, and now we kind of have a little zone, a little zoning disparity there.
And one thing I did forget to mention on this is, since we are adjusting procedures with regards to public hearing, we will put some sort of notification of any zoning text change that's being proposed to the planning board. Because clearly they have, they're going to have to know about, when you all change a law in front of them. And quite frankly, whether or not we want them to be able to, members of the planning board to be able to recommend a text change as well. It would go through their process first for a public hearing there before it goes to the board. We could, if there's interest in that, I can include that in there as well. So just let me know. But I will ask, I will look into, or I'll ask Teresa if she's got any, she can look into other areas other jurisdictions that allow applicant.
Again, I'm not trying to
Offer text
complicate it.
amendments.
I've just seen it work very effectively.
If state law requires just us to approve that, why do we gotta have to do planning board and, is that just our county?
Are you talking about for text amendments?
Yes.
I'm not saying it's dependent on how you, from a petitioner, it can go directly, technically, it can come from a board member, to myself, and be proposed to the board. And then it would just go through the normal procedure. This, since it may be tied to an application for rezoning, that they want to,
I could see it.
you run into, a lot of times we don't know we have a problem with our zoning ordinance until we have a problem with the zoning ordinance, and then we, then
Running around.
yeah, trying to fix it, trying to fix the problem, and so then we, these text amendments might be a way around it, so. But we can look at it. So this is really for informational purposes only. We'll make a presentation to you all of the changes that we discussed here for like I said, it will have to go to the planning board first, and then to us, then to the board of commissioners. But that's the route. All right. And we are going to use nowhere near our time on this, but I did want to get feedback from the board on how we want to proceed with the AR conditional zoning. These were some of the items that we discussed, and These are some of the items that we discussed earlier.
Because he lost the screen.
I think I hit any buttons. So anyway, you all have this in a flyer in front of you. So the concept of AR conditional zoning was not to make zoning easier in agricultural areas. It was to make it more difficult because we had some uses that are consistently going into agricultural areas, but via being rezoned to a heavier use that doesn't necessarily fit with the surrounding areas. The perfect example of that is dirt mines. They are generally going into more rural environments. They almost always start off as AR properties. But what we require them to do is rezone as industrial, and in order to fit into our zoning text. The problem with that being is that you end up having, which we've pretty much done with every dirt mine that we have, is having these little islands of industrial land among. What's that?
Spot zoning, really.
Right. I mean, that's essentially what it looks like it is. And so if we're going to approve these uses like dirt mines, like solar farms, like cell towers in more rural agricultural areas, we need to make a zoning category that is conditional, but will not act as a contagion to get surrounding properties thinking that they have the ability to rezone their property as industrial because this dirt mine opened up as industrial, or this cell tower went in there on a little piece of industrial land. So, and we do this by restricting what the uses can be, and I gave 9 examples here. We can remove some, we can add some, depending on what you want. And that's the first thing, is really being very specific about what uses are permitted in these AR commercial rural-based businesses. And then the second is having conditions for each of these uses. And so in some cases, in probably nearly all cases, you will have strict literal in the text of the conditions for each of these uses that they have to abide by. Solar farms, for example, when we approved a more recent one, we put language in there about decommissioning equipment. So after the panels are spent, they're just not abandoned and left out to a rural area to rot. Dirt mines, more recently, we're trying to beef up the zonings to require turn lanes and proper signage and necessary amount of coarse gravel going into the mine itself. So we can put the very specific items in there, and then it also gives the board the ability to put items in there that are specific to this location to protect the quality of life of any of the properties around it. These could continue to simply go in as non-conditional industrial uses, more of a spot type zoning scenario. But this was kind of coming up with a way to allow these uses who are traditionally going to either have been approved or are appropriate to be approved in rural areas have a basis for them to get approved without necessarily affecting surrounding properties. So that's the basis for it, and since the list is not up there, I'm going to read it out for the folks in the audience. The ones we thought of were dirt mines, solar farms, wind farms, I don't think we have any of those, campgrounds, livestock processing, hatcheries, gun ranges, cell towers, and agritourism. So,
Tim, how far are we along as far as hiring out to revamp our zoning system?
the entire thing, that is probably towards the end of summer, if I'm right on that.
We were going to do an RFP after July 1st.
Okay. After July 1st, we're going to do RFP on that process, and that would include the comp plan as well.
I think that'll solve a lot of the issues that we have.
Yeah, so I think
But I also
Yeah.
think,
this could be included in that.
right, I mean, I
Right.
would say we neglect this, I think it's a good idea. It's, like Phil said, we're spot zoning in industrial land for dirt mine. I think that's dangerous. I think it gives a false implication, especially when you're looking at the parcel map. When you look around there, if you're a developer or whatever you're trying to do, you see I-1 there, hey, there's industrial. You have no idea, that's just temporary and all that. You take it at face value, you can spend a lot of time and make a lot of assumptions based on it. I like doing things like this, conditional, it still has to come before the board. We can cater to the situation. Every single time we have any of these things come up, there's always special circumstances.
The gun ranges give me major heartburn.
Well, I mean,
I
it's
think
not,
that's the right way to zone it, though. It wouldn't be
Yeah,
There's
industrial.
not better zoning.
well, still it's conditional. I mean,
It's gotta be, yeah, it's
you
gotta.
gotta set your precedents and, if we do it restrictive enough, we shoot guns every day.
You gotta talk
Shoot
twice.
guns, but we put permitted use here, I mean, I think.
That doesn't mean it gets
bad
approved.
words.
Well, I mean,
It's not a
I mean,
fair
Here it comes.
That's what we're saying.
there has to be so many
That's my
feet
point. You-
Well, I mean, we're
vertical.
gonna allow it, I mean, if we move forward with it.
Yeah, you've got a couple choices, tell them wrong with this. You can either go ahead and restrict something, say we're not going to have any gun ranges, any zoning, for example, just use that as an example. Or you can put it in a zoning where it is a conditional use, so that you have the opportunity as a board to consider the houses that are around, is there a school nearby, is it a wooded area?
We'll put restrictions.
Well, you
Hours
put
of
restrictions-
operation.
You put maybe a dozen restrictions to start with, and then acres, but you're not, what I like about conditional use, you're not limited to those dozen restricted uses. If you place this in a zoning like industrial, you put your legal way on this, and you put those 12 restrictions, and it's a permitted use in that zoning, I'm not sure you can go back and put additional restrictions, can you, if it's a permitted use?
If it's a permitted use, then
They can just do it.
they can do it.
It's not a by right use, it will be a conditional use.
Here,
Yeah, here.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
like to hear, but I'm saying if you chose a zone like industrial, that was already industrial, and said gun ranges are permitted use, and here's the 6
Well, I used the
restrictions.
wrong word there, I'm just saying, I don't know.
This is what you
You
get.
you got to see, not having it all.
We've already got one in the county, so what do we do with that?
I don't know, I don't know the answer for that.
I think it's an open question.
But having gun ranges pop up all over
Well,
District 3, I don't think it's gonna be a good
yeah.
idea.
I don't think.
Well, I mean, I think though, again, if there's restrictions, I mean, the one that's over there near, essentially your district, but it's on near me, I mean, they just quit charging money, they still come out and shoot. I mean, it's just the difference in whether they run this business, they just have their buddies over to shoot on weekend. So, I mean, they're gonna fire their guns.
I'd rather have it regulated than just do whatever.
Yeah. Thing.
And I think it could simply come down to how strict we make the conditions, with regards to buffers, size of the property,
Berms.
berms, and that sort of thing.
Is there a property a big enough piece that nobody's gonna move close by after the fact, too? Direction and all that stuff, that's kind of like. When people do it all the time, there's gotta be a way to do it correctly and safely. There's counties that have it, we saw it, how long ago, Stephanie forwarded it to us. Did you forward us that email?
I'll try to find it again, but it was actually the city, Richmond Hill, I think.
Yeah,
maybe.
it was either a county or city thing, but
It's theirs.
And if, right, if I
It was
recall
a municipality.
correctly, it was theirs, so they had total control of it, so it wasn't them allowing gun ranges just all over.
but they just did it themselves.
Right, yeah.
They had long rifles, everything.
We currently have an ordinance for discharging firearms
Private.
on private property, right?
It's something that we were supposed to be looking into. I mean, we haven't, this is just a way to restrict it so they don't pop up.
Right.
Um,
You could do it anywhere where it can only fit in a few different places.
The only way you can manage it is to have some legal avenue for them to take and do it properly, right?
What I is just have.
Otherwise,
a
it
person do
just
it
happens and.
and then not allow anybody else to do it. And then there's gotta be an avenue. Either we don't do it at all, or we have an avenue where other people can do it too.
And I think in a lot of these cases, we would then go back and amend other zoning categories so that these would be more than likely prohibited uses in several of those zoning categories, or we can leave them as permitted uses in those zoning categories. You know, the example would be like a dirt mine. If someone's got a previously zoned industrial property, is it problematic to have a dirt mine there if it's already meeting those qualifications and it's already been zoned that way? Or we can simply shut that door and say it's got to be AR rural-based business conditional zoning. So, but those, on each case, each of the, if we were to decide on 9 of these, on each of these 9 cases, we can decide, what avenues we want to leave open for them, or we just want to shut all doors other than ARB, commercial rural-based business. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. But it does clean up the ordinance, and this will integrate this in part of our overhaul of our ordinance as well. So if I'm hearing, if I were to start off with, the simple ones, if I were to start off with, would be solar farms, cell towers, because we've kind of partially addressed them in our zoning. And even the dirt mines, because if you recall, Charlie kind of partially addressed those in there as ways where I can kind of give you an example of what an AR commercial zoning would look like for these, and then you all can determine whether it's a route you want to go for none of them, or just maybe some of them, or all of these. But I'll start off with a few of them just to give you an example, see if it's a route that the board wants to continue down.
Dirt mine definitely, we have a rezoning tonight off of Middle Road.
That's right.
It'll be basically 55 acres to go from R1 to industrial zoning. Would there be any input from the assessor's office? I don't know how that's going to affect any assessment or tax revenue from the property. I know we have one dirt mine, the guy not using it, but it still is industrial. He's being taxed at that rate, but I'd say he needs to discuss that with the assessor's office.
He's taxed at what rate, higher rate or lower rate?
Well, compared to industrial zoning versus an AR1 with the conditional use, how it will be, is there any input going to come from the assessor's office, or is there something we need to discuss with them?
Yeah, because as we're talking about, we got a little time picking up what you're saying, I have some concerns with these.
Like the solar farm is a generator, it's a revenue generator, it's a.
Yeah, we get to pay
There's
back.
capital there.
Yeah.
It's a revenue generator for the landowner,
Yeah.
right? But for us, it's a cost because it's the roads that messes up and the dirt and asphalt that tears up, and I'm not sure it doesn't lower the value of that land.
No, I was talking about the solar farm. I was just wondering if there needs to,
Oh, I don't know
yeah.
that.
I'm
I
sorry.
just thought that, because tonight we have on our agenda to discuss later, you know, to consider that zoning for the dirt line on.
Right, several midland.
I have a concern that I keep getting calls from constituents about these heavy trucks tearing the roads, they tear my roads, on the courthouse in Little Call, that was approved over there. You know, I'm not sure these things don't need to be on state highways or truck-approved routes. There's plenty of land in Effingham on a state route or a truck-approved route, which has the base and the asphalt to handle those roads.
Yeah, that restricts the property owner or the citizen from using his property as he would choose.
Or
I think
damaging our roads.
Well, there should be something to capture that expense. A lot of trucks do the same thing. They were logging over there off of, I forget what road, I think it was off Midland.
To me, though, if there's anything that's for industrial use, it's all these trucks coming in and out of there on these rural roads.
Yeah.
That's an industrial production.
100 trucks a day coming out of there.
I mean, I don't disagree with that.
And I think if you limit it to that, you could go a long ways on our roads and still allow a lot of property owners to use their properties to the best of their abilities to generate some revenues. But I'm real concerned about it.
I can tell you what I
We're going to restrict loggers to only state highways? I mean, we can't go putting restrictions.
No, I think
This
there's
is a temporary thing.
I see a little difference there because the logging, there's the timber industry, you gotta go on the property to get the log. But you can get dirt on any property on the state highway.
Well, if you don't own it on a state highway, and I want to get dirt off my property, because there's a market for it.
The logging's gonna be one-time temporary versus the dump trucks.
Again, it restricts the land, the property owner from use of his property as he would.
We do that all the time, these zoning, it's all these zoning.
My concern is,
No, we're talking about truck traffic. That's what we're talking. We're discussing destruction of our roads where there should be a way to capture that.
there's also a need.
Need for,
Do we have a need for more dirt lines?
yes, as long as there's construction, there's road construction.
I mean, I couldn't give away dirt. I had 400
There.
roads, and I'm 3 miles from this place. Is there a need?
Then why are they rezoning and,
Money.
yeah, they're selling dirt.
Exactly. Well,
What I've heard-
for themselves.
What I've heard for the last month and a half from people is they want agricultural property to stay rural. And the only way to do that is to limit it to true agricultural use, period. I mean, that's what I'm hearing, that's,
We're gonna let dirt lines all over the county.
They can do it in mine now. They just have to get it rezoned to I-1, but tell me one dirt line would turn down.
That's what I'm
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
we've had so many of them, is what I'm worried about. I know we hadn't turned any down.
Well, maybe we shouldn't have as many trucking companies.
Maybe we shouldn't.
I'm just saying.
Then you have to go to
You
the store
should,
to buy your sugar.
yeah, I'm just saying, if the property owner, if the value of the property is the dirt, and the problem is tearing up the road, then I think we should come up with a mechanism to charge them.
And I've talked to our staff about that, I'd like to know, can we charge a fee, like if you're gonna have a 5-acre land surface mine, it's gonna be 12 feet deep, you can calculate the yardage, engineers do all the time, what's the fee you charge for that land surface?
but legitimately, where do you draw the line though? Because I struggle with it too, on personal use of your property as you feel right. You could do a gun range. Are we just gonna let gun ranges go? We have to draw the line somewhere. Where is the line?
Restrictions, how big a piece of property, what kind of borders, I mean, all that can be written in here. And maybe, there may not be a single piece of property that qualifies, but you can do it if you buy the property.
But there are uses for properties that we just, none of us probably on this board would allow the use of that property to be used, but it's their property, so we're telling them they can't, I mean, there's a line, there is a line. Has to be. And I'm sure it's different with,
I know you're on the inside.
You know where I am.
I do, we've done a lot of this.
So who do we choose that gets to put in a dirt line?
It's not about
Who owns
who,
it?
it's
Okay,
about
let's just-
limiting
well,
how many. Or maybe.
Okay,
or
how many houses, how many?
Establishing a need.
That's getting into their business. I don't know what a need, I don't know if there's no need, they're not going to, it's supply and demand. If there's no need for dirt.
Beginning your business.
No.
Yes,
I don't-
it is.
If they can't,
I can mine uranium beside your property, you'd be cool with it? Build nuclear bombs.
Uranium, I guess.
But you know, I think-
Landfill, what if first one to landfill?
What? I didn't say that.
I'm just saying, where is the line?
somewhere.
I don't know, I just, I don't want to land, I mean, I'm just saying.
An example would be, for example, might also be commercial property. You know, the property owner has an opportunity because he has a really high volume amount of traffic coming off this county road to the state road. He says, I'd love to have a nice little convenience store or whatever out here, commercial property in the middle of a rural area. Do we restrict him? There is a line. Can we do?
But that's another reason why we have conditional stuff, because everything's different, every piece of property. Especially on specialty things like these, there's always a special circumstance. Hey, I need to go a Midland, but there's a 500 housing neighborhood going in a mile down the road. Then that's got I see the need. It's not just say I want to make a buck. I want to buy dirt that's 5 miles down the road and buy here tomorrow. You know, that's got my ear. Okay, I see the need for it. Because there's 10 other ones that are already in your district.
Most of these end up, they dig them out and then they turn them into neighborhood developments. Well, if there's a use for something else, they want to
Well,
find
they
it.
keep digging, ain't nothing but a hole in there.
Well, they use, but I mean, yeah, they have to have.
But surface mines they are very much an industrial use. You sit at the industrial park at Ebenezer Road, sit there for a day, and then go sit in front of a surface mine and tell me which one appears to be more industrial. It is.
I didn't think that was
It's
much.
very-
We started getting on the complaints about the roads.
Not saying I'm against it, but it is.
It's
It just is.
whatever. I'm just, the restrictions of what a individual uses or.
Well, that's another approach from what Phil's saying. You know, if it truly is an industrial use, you know, we limit it to industrial areas, and we don't rezone property industrial. In the middle of agricultural property. I mean, if it's truly an industrial use.
Well, you're not gonna put a dirt pit in an industrial, I mean, like over there where it's good for warehousing and all that, you're not gonna go dig holes, you're gonna do a warehouse.
Exactly. People are buying agricultural land because they want cheap, just the dirt.
But I think we need to start looking-
Agricultural land.
Looking closer at least on access, truck routes. I think we've got to look at that.
Yeah, we're already doing that.
Because we've set an ordinance that doesn't allow trucks to be on our county roads that are maintained to a truck route standard. And then we approve things on roads that aren't the standard, circumventing our own ordinance to keep these trucks off the road. So that's my concern.
I mean, y'all know in the trucker business, I have no problem keeping my guys on the truck routes. But they have not made that big of a deal. That's part of being in business.
Honestly, we're trying to put a bunch of uses in a single box, and it's just difficult.
Well, the original idea, I think, was to eliminate the spot zoning issue, so
Yeah.
whatever it is, somebody next door did say, hey, he's industrial, I'm gonna be in too, thinking they can get a profit.
It's a problem.
These are really.
But again, for me, from what I'm hearing from the public the last month and a half, 2 months, is they want to keep rural areas rural. I'm probably going to look at these rezonings for surface mines a lot different than I have in the past because of the input I've heard.
So we really have two things tonight that are different. One is, where can you best control or restrict it? It's probably conditional zone. The other question is, do we allow surface mines or other applications that aren't on state roads or truck roads, or do we put more restrictions is another question. Do we limit it? That's your question. Do you limit it? Other question is, where do you consider it? So I think tonight, we want to consider in a conditional commercial rural business use, we're going to put additional restrictions in the detail. And that one question comes out, we're looking for commercial rural business conditional zone. Laws, we can put additional restrictions in the detail. Whether we restrict that property or your question is another issue. We need to cover that. We need to do some more research.
He isn't caretaker.
Welcome to solar farms. I'm glad to see that on there because I've had to deal with that a lot, and I think we'll see that come up more and more. I guess really the main thing for solar farms, I really don't think I think they're pretty good neighbors.
Buffering and visual.
Because they're quiet and don't smell, but I do think, like Bill said, the buffers, I think we just need to add some vegetative buffer language in there. And I don't think we have to get too technical with solar farms, but I just think that would be good to, because I know the two I deal with, it'll start from ground zero every time. But what kind of buffer do you use? How much vegetative buffer? If we at least had something that we could start with, we'll have one row around it or two,
Yeah.
then that would, everybody would know, and that'd be a great start.
And under conditional use, you can look and see what road is it on, do we either 100 foot, 200 foot, is there a subdivision right next to it? It's conditional use allows you to go beyond whatever conditions you already put on it as a conditional use.
Yeah. And I'm not saying don't have something there about gun ranges, but definitely, I mean, I think we all agree from what we said is we just really make sure we're careful on that language.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. It's got to be
For sure.
Like Forrest said, I mean, a good point, really, on these dirt runs, solar farms, these places that are agriculture that's becoming a business center, are we getting any tax revenue from that? Are we getting any tax revenue off the energy that the solar farms produce? Are we getting anything off the dirt to help repair the roads?
Well, I was talking about the changing from leaving AR1 versus going into industrial, because I think once it goes to industrial, there's a different,
There's a different tax.
thing. Maybe not. But again, that's the assessor. That's the reason I just thought, I don't know if we need input from that side.
Yeah, I'd like to know, what's the value of that land, lots of eyes on it, and what's the value after it's after it's done? Is it now dirt holding?
And even more so with dirt runs.
Or, yeah, if it's a conditional use under, and still zoned AR, what is the assessed value then?
Yeah, that's what I'm
That
saying.
area,
Is there a
I'm
huge-
curious how that's
Yeah.
handled.
That would have to come, I guess, from the assessor though.
So,
I don't think it's a different millage, is it? Would be the same.
village.
No, it's not.
It's the
It should be the
value.
assessed value.
It's the value, yeah, the
I mean,
tax.
that's really subjective. I've seen values in R1 that's big, I've seen values that are through the roof. I've seen AR values that are really, really low, and some that are substantial.
We have a track record, you can take a dozen surface land mines and tell us what the value was. Then look at the color, project what it would have been had it stayed just AR, and what is it, we can kind of get an idea.
And they are keeping their fair share.
But I guess just to help Tim out, there's 9 things he says, are there any that you would not want to be under a conditional use zone? Because all of these are going to either be put under an I zoning or a conditional zoning where you can have more controls. Is there any on here that you want to tell Tim, definitely don't put this under a commercial or business conditional zone, leave it under an I zoning, and we'll just rezone that, on the I.
Personally, I don't think any of these should be under the eyes on it.
So what Roger said is that about that board, we want to consider all these, if we're going to have them in our zone, they should be under the commercial, rural business, base business, one.
Work out the monetary part of it.
Work out the details of what conditions will be each one of these, and then we have the ability to put additional conditions.
And then we can see each one. If you got somebody that lives around that person with a special circumstance, every time we have that conditional, we have to come before the board. We need to consider all the variables at that point.
Neil, we got a question for you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. Land surface mines, when they are approved, you're gonna, they kept them in I zone. Does the value of that property get taxed higher? Does the value
Yes.
go up?
It goes on our rural industrial schedule.
And that's a higher value?
Typically, yes.
How much? All right.
Well, of course, it depends on what part of the county you're talking about. It's a lot higher, say, if it's in the northern part of the county. If it's in the southern part, it doesn't increase. There's not as big as of an increase.
Because it's already high increase.
That's right, because the southern part of the county values being so high.
And then after it's closed out and it's coming back to AR,
then we put it back to a rural land value, but then we have to typically discount to a certain amount because they have removed a lot of,
On the trees, the dirt.
yeah, they basically, I guess to a certain extent, kind of basically, I guess you could say, kind of ruined the property to a
Decreased the
certain
value.
extent. Yeah, I mean, it's typically becomes a lake or something at that point.
What about hypothetically, because it's what we're discussing, instead of rezoning those parcels industrial to have a surface mine,
Yeah.
if we had a conditional use in AR for that use, would the Board of Assessors capture that use and tax it accordingly with that conditional use?
I mean,
It might be a loaded
And
question.
it sounds like you would still be wanting to use the zoning calculation for rural property, because that's what it still is. It's just to be AR with the
yeah,
industrial
good.
use.
And I guess the best way to explain it is we try to, I mean, we do look at how it's being used and we try to capture that, the value, so when it's being used, regardless of how y'all may have it zoned, since it's got that industrial or what we would consider industrial use on it, it does influence the value because there is value in that.
So if we consider the conditional use, sort of our assumption would be that the value would not go down from what's happening now when we zone I and it's used for industrial use. Because you go based on what it's actually used for versus how we zone it and anything else.
That's right. We value based on the current use of the property. In some cases, you may have something that's zoned industrial, but it's being used as timber property. We only value it as timber property. Now, when the use actually changes from ag to industrial, then you will see that value shift.
My concern with the dirt mines is getting money for the roads that we're going to be repairing. You know, not having that be a taxpayer burden, but rather the burden of the person using the bit. Somehow equate that and repair roads with repair roads.
Yeah.
Tim, you got what you need?
Yes.
Okay. We have 5 minutes before the hour. You take a quick break because we might be here a little while. Got a long agenda tonight. So let's take a 5-minute break. Have you done some water and use the restroom? We need a motion to adjourn the workshop. We're going to call to order the Effingham Board of Commissioners meeting this May 18th, 2021. It's 5:06. Sorry for the slight delay. We had a workshop tonight. We just need a little bit of a break. With that, let's go on to Ron's vacation. Please remember Commissioner Loper who went through some surgery and recovering. He's missing tonight. Vacation will be led by Commissioner Deloach and the remain standing for the pledge of allegiance to our flag.
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, please be with us this evening and help us to do your will. As the chairman mentioned earlier, please be with Commissioner Loper as he is recovering from surgery. Please be with our first responders and their family members as they all keep us safe, Lord. And in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll bring us down to item 4, approval of the agenda. Consideration of a resolution to approve the agenda tonight. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, at request of staff, we are requesting that item number 4, under public hearings, consideration to approve the first reading of the budget and budget ordinance for fiscal year 2021 and 2022. We are requesting that this item be withdrawn. It will be brought back before you on June 1st.
Which
So this is item number 4.
Item number 4, new business.
New business.
And I can give a quick feedback on that, and this is based on some feedback from Commissioner Loper. And so on the budget, while we discussed with each member of the board, traditionally we've had a workshop, and while the workshop generally doesn't have a public participation component to it, it is a good opportunity for the public to hear what's in our budget, what changes we're making. And so what we've decided to do was have first reading of the budget, similar to how we have a planning board section of our meeting at 6 o'clock at the second meeting of the month. We will then have a public presentation of the budget at 6 p.m. And then just go back into the regular meeting. And so if there's any questions, we can get them during that presentation.
So this move tonight is designed to allow more public input into the budget?
That's
I
correct.
guess I have one question, though. We advertise this tonight as a public hearing, or the public here tonight that have come to express thoughts on the budget.
Was it a first reading tonight?
First reading is tonight.
Okay. And public hearing is the second reading, or is it first?
Public hearing is the first.
Oh, it's
It's
first,
a public
okay.
hearing tonight.
I don't know, I hate to disappoint those who came to talk about the budget tonight, if you advertise it that way, but
I think you can still allow them to express their concerns or make their comments, just kind of as a discussion, but you won't vote on it.
it might be good to have a presentation so they can make comments. It wouldn't take that long, would it, to, I don't want to put you on the spot, because you may want to decide not to make the material, so is that going to be a difficult thing? My only concern is constituents may have come tonight to listen to the budget, to respond to it, and we can respond to discussion.
You need it, I can go get it.
We don't say what.
Can we just ask if anyone's here?
Yes, anyone who tonight is here to listen to the budget or consider the budget that we're proposing. I may ask that again later, if not, then I'm good. I should want to disappoint some 4 or 5 folks who can't address the budget. Any other corrections or additions that you're recommending to the board for the agenda? Is that it?
Yes, sir. That's
I
it.
have a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item number 4 in business.
So moved.
Second.
I think the motion, Mr. Deutsch, second, Mr. Burdette. These glass things, I can't tell which one of you is making the motion.
Be down.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We have our agenda. Moving to the minutes, consideration to approve the May 4th, 2021 work session and regular commissioner meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or additions? Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lowe, second by Mr. Burdette to approve the meetings as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And they are approved. Welcome our public tonight. A good little crowd. It's always good to have people participate in our government process. Documents for this meeting are located on our website, also in our clerk's office. I hope you got a chance to review those and participate at the appropriate time. We always encourage constituents to comment, and if you can keep those comments to 2 or 3 minutes, that'll be very helpful so that everyone has a chance to speak to those items when they come up. And with that, we'll move into our presentation. 505, there's our presentation by the Fraser family. Presentation to EMS employee Shelley Fields and Chris Boyd for some outstanding work. So that's exciting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have some very special guests with us, both on the side of our EMS staff and some beneficiaries of our EMS staff's expertise. But I think I want to just start off, if I can, with an award that was recently presented, and then go to the story about the award. Shelley Fields and Chris Boyd won the 2020 Dr. Joseph E. Simon Pediatric Award of Excellence. And it was based on an incident that occurred regarding the Fraser twins. And so our EMS units found the mother when they arrived on scene in a bathtub without water with the first baby, baby A, having been delivered in the bathtub just prior to EMS arrival and was wrapped in a towel. Baby A was cyanotic, and for the less learned, I'm told that means baby A was blue, and motionless and apneic, which means it was not breathing. Examination of the mother revealed the second twin, baby B, was breached with the legs and abdomen delivered and the upper torso arm still inside the birth canal. The umbilical cord of baby A was inside the birth canal as well. Chris Boyd immediately took over care of baby A, determining a 5-minute APGAR score, which is, I guess, a way that they judge a child after being born. He provided suction clamping of the umbilical cord, warming, manual ventilation via an infant BVM and CPR. Shelley Fields continued to care of the mother and baby B. She delivered baby B calculating where Shelley provided suction clamping of the umbilical cord, warming, and manual ventilation via infant BVM. A second AMS unit was called to transport the mother so that the twins could leave the scene immediately. Chris Boyd remained on the scene and took care of the mother. Shelley Fields took over care of both twins for transport. Baby A required CPR and manual ventilation throughout the call due to heart rate of less than 60. Baby B had a heart rate of 120 and required manual ventilation only. Shelley was able to alternate use of cardiac monitor for both twins throughout the transport. She also was able to contact the receiving facility to request portable oxygen tanks and warm blankets to be waiting for their arrival. I'm just amazed they can do all this at once. Upon arrival, baby A had achieved a heart rate of 100, no longer requiring chest compression. Baby B maintained a heart rate of 120. Two neonatal teams were waiting for the twins' arrival. Dr. Buckner, medical director of the neonatal intensive care nurses, stated, "The care that the EMTs provided allowed the babies to arrive at the hospital, giving them a chance to survive. Without the resuscitation care provided, the babies probably would not have survived prior to arrival at the hospital." So that's the story behind the awards. And if I could invite both Shelley Fields and Chris Boyd up to be recognized for their work. And we have two special guests as well. We've got the Fraser twins joining us.
Wow.
I'm the middle one right here.
Okay. Now, I don't know if we did we keep the name Baby A?
So the one in red is baby A,
Oh.
and then this is baby B.
So William and Ben.
Well, and I wanted to take an opportunity like this to present some of our greatest examples of what our employees provide the public. And so often you get caught up in COVID and everything that's going on, the risks they're taking there, that you miss these these stories. And with that, I want to thank them very much on behalf of the citizens of Effingham County for their incredible work.
Chris and Shelby remain once these pictures are done, and commissioners, if we can have you come down, we do have a certificate of invitation. The certificate reads as follows: recognition of service excellence from the Board of Commissioners. We honor Emergency Medical Technician 1 Chris Boyd for outstanding and exceptional life-saving emergency medical service administered to a mother and her preterm twins. Your actions demonstrate your commitment to providing the highest standard of patient care. We applaud you on being awarded the 2020 Dr. Joseph E. Simon Pediatric Award of Excellence, and we appreciate your service to Effingham County. Presented this 18th day of May 2021. So this is the presentation for Mr. Boyd and Ms. Fields. Thank you.
Thank you too. Good, great stuff.
They make me proud.
You're
welcome.
Amazing. That's why you do it.
I feel like I had a house full of people. I did not do all that myself. We had a lot of behind-the-scenes people. Yeah, our medics called in the hospital. It was really huge.
You only have 2 minutes.
You're so noble.
Yes.
That makes us bigger.
All right.
Well,
What do you use? Come on over. So if you start.
yes, you should.
Get it back. One on the side, these little ones in the middle.
Okay.
Put them down front.
Good.
Can you see them good?
You don't want to be in there?
No, you're good.
BBA. BBA.
William.
There you go. Hey, look at this way. There you go. Oh, I'm sure we got something there.
Oh, good job.
I saw you back there. I was like, who? I can see you. That's my wife.
The day's a miracle. We want to thank you as well for just the excellent work. And that just shows there's a lot of training and hard planning and practicing and just organization that takes place besides having 2 wonderful skilled EMTs like you have. That's just great. Thank you so much for all you do.
And I just want to say, it's just one of many stories that go on inside these boxes that ride up and down that highway. They all do a great job. We appreciate y'all's support, too.
You do a great job. Now, with that, I want you to know you do not have to stay for the next 2 hours of this meeting. We will give you a chance if you want to rise and go home be with your family. You got a little there. That is perfectly fine. You're welcome to stay if you want to. That's not necessary. And I see there was some other EMS folks in the back that are here supporting us. Appreciate them as well.
Mr. Chairman, I will mention that on the first item on the new business, we also have a recognition via proclamation declaring May 16th as Emergency Medical Services Week as well. So,
Very good, so that's right. That might be a good time to step out and want to get the recognize that. We're going to move to our consent agenda, and there are several items on our consent agenda. We have 6, and I'll read through those. Item number 1 on the consent agenda is consideration to approve the rental agreement with Action Pack, formerly Concerted Services Incorporated, for space in the Effingham County Annex. Item 2, consideration to approve to renew the pre-event contract with Thompson Consulting Services for disaster debris monitoring and financial recovery services for an additional 1-year period. Item 3 is consideration to approve to renew the pre-event contract with Cerise Environmental Services for disaster debris removal for an additional 1-year period. Item 4 is consideration to approve to renew the pre-event contract with Crowder's Golf for disaster debris removal for an additional 1-year period. Item 5 is consideration to approve to amend the contract with Otis Elevators for service at the new administrative complex. And item 6 is a change order, consideration to approve a change order with Husky Gay Bell for design services related to CEM Gym. Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Kiefer to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And it carries. So we'll move to our new business. Item number 1, and this is a good one, proclamation, consideration to approve a proclamation declaring May 16th to May 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Service Week. What a good night to you.
That's a perfect segue into this item. So according to the American College of Emergency Physicians website, EMS Week was established under President Ford, who declared November 3rd through the 10th in 1974 as the first National Emergency Medical Services Week. This observance continued annually for 4 more years and was then restituted by the ACEP in 1982 to be celebrated in September. It was later moved to the month of May. So we do have a proclamation here for presentation for that week. Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the emergency medical services team are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illnesses or injury, and whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventive medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services team, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore, the Effingham County Board of Commissioners, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 16th through May 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week with the EMS Strong theme. This is EMS, caring for our community. We encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate activities. Proclaim this 18th day of May 2021 to be signed by the chairman.
Thank you so much. Once again, we appreciate our EMS and all our folks who battle for us every day. Makes a huge difference for our community. Do I have a motion to approve the proclamation as read?
Make a motion to approve as read.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Floyd to approve the proclamation as read. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it carries. Then I will sign this. I should come down to you.
I was there from the tennis sector.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is really a celebration about what our community is all about. Over the years, we've seen it, as long as we lived here, people helping people, serving others, and that's what I think makes our county such a great county, from our fire to our EMS to our sheriff's department, to our commission. I salute these guys here, and our staff. It's all about serving our community, so we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 2, under new business, is consideration to approve to accept a donation to EMS from the Women of the World Women Life Chapter.
Wanda McDuffie, EMS Director. I was reached out and was contacted by a representative from Women of the World, which is a fraternal insurance company that's a member-owned. Once a quarter, they make a donation to a nonprofit or charitable service, and this quarter, they chose a first responder. Is what they wanted to do, is represent somebody in the first responder need. So they contacted me and want to make a donation to EMS for $500. So there's no stipulations, there's no requirements to accepting these funds. So I'm here to ask to accept the donation of $500 for EMS.
Absolutely. Any questions from the board? Motion to approve alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Keeper to approve alternative 1 and to accept this donation. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. It carries. Thank you, Wanda, again.
And thank you for all your support for EMS. We appreciate you.
And thanks to the Women Life Insurance.
Yes, definitely.
And thanks to those folks too.
Can I move these glasses? I cannot hear some of the comments. Item number 3 of the new business was a policy consideration to approve the agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation for inmate work detail.
Good evening, Allison Bruton, purchasing agent. The county currently has an agreement in place with GDOT for the use of an inmate work crew to perform work on public works projects. This new agreement has been received from GDOT for fiscal year 22, with the terms remaining the same as the previous agreements, and staff is recommending alternative 1.
Any questions? Motion for alternative 1.
Alternative 1. Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdette for alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It carries. Item 4, we are moved, so that item 5, contract consideration to approve a contract with Just Appraised for deed and plat processing for the tax assessor's office.
Yes. So Just Appraised is a software program that processes deeds. Currently, we have to manually enter each deed in that comes in, that's recorded in the clerk's office, and we have a lady that does that full time. And recently, with the real estate market taking off the way it has, we have had a huge increase in sales. So it is all she can do to maintain where we are. In fact, she's really not maintaining, she's falling behind. So rather than potentially hire another person, this would be a potential fix. It would be a cheaper route. But basically what it would do is once the deeds are recorded in the clerk's office, it would look at all the images because they're submitted electronically now. It would look at the legal descriptions and look at the information that we have in our CAMA system, and it would pair the deeds to what we have, and it would basically automatically load those deed or sales transactions into our CAMA system to where we're basically reviewing the information that's about to go into our system. So the manual entry would go down tremendously. There would be a few things we would have to manually enter. Say for instance, occasionally we get bad legal descriptions and we have to do deed research and stuff like that. We would still have to do that, but for instance, take a subdivision that had 190 lots. She may spend 8 hours entering all those in. She could do this in probably 20 minutes with this program. So I think it would be a savings to the county rather than hiring another employee and eventually the market goes down and then you don't have enough work for 2 people. This would be a possible solution to that problem.
I saw the initial cost was $15,000 for the license and then $1,500 for training. Is there any maintenance costs, ongoing annual costs?
There's not, so that includes all the support and all that. So all that is fixed in, and it's based off of number of deed transactions per year. So it can vary. So it could go up or down depending on how many they look at the previous year's deeds.
Okay. So the 16.5 is pretty much the cost right now that we're spending.
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Do you have a motion to approve alternative 1?
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Kiefer to approve alternative 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Thank you, Bill. Item number 6 is a contract consideration to approve resolution 021-032 for surplus of a Volvo tractor trailer from the fire department.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Allison Bruton, purchasing agent. Chief Hodges has requested the surplus of a vehicle that's listed on the resolution in your packets. Staff is recommending alternative 1.
Okay. Any questions, comments, motion?
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
So,
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Floyd. Is that right? Approve alternative 1. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 7, the contract consideration to approve a change order number 1 with Parker Engineering LLC for engineering services for McCall Blue Jay intersection improvements.
Yes, sir. Parker Engineering is the design engineer for the Blue Jay and McCall intersection improvement project. A contract was recently awarded for that project construction, which was approximately $300,000 less than the allocated budget amount. So staff would like to utilize those funds to explore additional intersection improvements, focusing on McCall Road and Blandford Road, east of the Norfolk Southern Railroad tracks. The total requested amount, change order 1, is $3,500, which will bring the overall contract total for Parker Engineering to $69,000. The staff is recommending alternative 1.
And they're just coming up with some design ideas for how to improve that with this $35,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the idea that it might be more cost effective to utilize a change order on the existing contractor because it's a similar intersection and potentially save some money on construction.
I'll be $35
And get it done
design
quickly.
ideas. They're not designing the change, just going to give us some ideas of what we might do.
That's right.
That sounds great. Any other question, discussion? Motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Kiefer to approve alternative 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 8 is an agreement consideration to approve supplemental agreement number 3 for post-design services for Effingham Parkway under and the Effingham 008 work order number 6 for the Effingham Parkway.
Yes, sir. So the supplemental agreement is to provide post-design construction services for Effingham Parkway. These services are typically on an as-needed basis as compliance and construction issues come up during the construction of the project. Requests for information and contractor coordination are also included. GDOT has been requiring consultant attendance at the pre-construction conference as well as transition meetings between pre-construction and construction offices. Staff is recommending alternative 1.
All covered by GDOT, right?
It would be under the PE section, which is covered by GDOT. We get reimbursed for it.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second Mr. Deloitte for alternative 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. It carries. Item number 9, under agreements. Consideration to approve the Georgia Probation Case Management System Agreement between Effingham County Probation and the Judicial Alternative of Georgia Incorporated for case management services.
Yes, sir. Judicial Alternatives of Georgia has created a system to assist with probation case management. The term of this agreement is for a period of 2 years, unless sooner terminated as provided in the agreement. The need for this change is due to outdated software that will not be updated from the current provider probation tracking systems. And staff's recommending alternative 1.
Questions, comments? Motion for alternative 1.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Motion by Mr. Lowe, second Mr. Burdette for alternative 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. And item number 10, the last item of new business, consideration to approve a clinical service agreement between Effingham Hospital Incorporated and Effingham County for medical and hospital services to inmates in custody of the Effingham County Jail.
Yes, sir. So the Effingham County Jail and Prison both desire to contract with the hospital for the provision of clinical services to inmates and other individuals in the custody of the jail and prison. In exchange for the clinical services provided under this agreement, the county shall pay the hospital the then current Medicaid rate for each clinical service provided to an inmate. The staff's recommending alternative 1.
Do we have any cost estimates on this?
I don't. I could work to gather that for you.
What have we been doing? Have we been using the hospital here?
I spoke to the warden briefly about it, and he said that they haven't had to utilize the hospital but a few times, but this was something that they wanted to have in place for when they did.
Okay.
I could try to gather more information for you if you'd like.
I'm going to beat this whole drum about the prison, because I know this prison was part of this contract. I still don't know what that prison cost us and what benefit we get out of it, because we only get like $22 a day from the state. And it costs us more than $1 million to make sure we get everything. You got to have inmate medical on top of that. And just, boy, I have this concern about what this is costing us.
Yeah.
Look at that, but so it's not something that's not a very large expense right now. It's just something to provide an opportunity.
That's my understanding, yes, sir. This would all be above and beyond what WellPath can provide, which is the current provider in the prison and the jail.
I got you. Do you have a comment, Tim?
No, I mean, we can kind of work out some updated figures. I think we have some from last year. But it's all basis on the value of a work hour for an inmate. And so it's the kind of the best estimate we can. And one thing that Sarah has been working on, she's with our HR department, is making sure we have that schedule so we don't have cases like we've had in the past where crews could not go out because of lack of guards. You lose a whole day of productivity on that, and we've been very vigilant on that about the past 6 months.
Sounds good. All right, any questions or discussion on the board? Motion for alternative 1.
Motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Floyd to approve alternative 1. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it carries.
Thank you.
Conclude our new business, so I'll make one more comment about that. Tim, when we start looking at that, I've seen those analysis done by consultants in the past, and those 8-hour days. Inmates can't be picked up until 9, they gotta be back at 3.
That's right.
You don't get 8-hour days. I every consultant that I've seen used 8-hour days, and it was an inflated benefits. Just to make sure, I wouldn't mind having some input with those analysis.
I'll make it do actual work hours. What is it, the 8:30 to 3?
Because most of those, as I've seen in the past, other counties, they're inflated at least 45%.
Right.
It may be a great benefit, I just think the board deserves to know as we continue the budget for each year.
Plus, we have to add in, most of the time, there's a couple of contracts that do provide some contribution towards operations. Most of the contracts that we do for the local jurisdictions, like Springfield, Guyton, and Rincon, we're going to add their work hours in there as well, cost offsetting the price of the car.
Yes, we may be offsetting those costs to using them elsewhere.
Right.
And DOT doesn't cost us anything because they're providing the transportation.
Right.
We do the deputy transportation. Okay. So reports from our commission and administrative staff. We'll start with our county manager. Do you have a report tonight?
Yeah, just wanted to say we had a very productive meeting on SPLOST this morning with the municipalities. We were moving quickly to get that process going. So hopefully, and they've expressed interest in actually producing an IGA between all parties, which could potentially get us an extra year out of the SPLOST. And so hopefully we'll be able to wrap that up in early summer. And as I mentioned earlier, the budget, we will have a presentation on the first reading on the first, as well as public hearing, so the public can respond to what they hear in the first reading. And then second reading will be on the 15th.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Appreciate it. Clerk?
Just your monthly report from BOM for April. It'll be in your boxes.
Very good. Anything from any of our other staff? Anything from our commission?
One question, I don't know if we've got any, the installation of the dock, the floating dock at Effingham, is anything, have you heard anything on that, or?
They were going to, they being the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, were going to put in an application for that. I don't know what their funding availability is. I did meet them down there and express that the county was very interested in exploring opportunities out there. If this doesn't work out, maybe we can work something out with the county contributing.
Okay, I just thought that.
McCall Park.
McCall Park, we hope to get that on the agenda for award in, is it the first or the second meeting in June?
Probably take either one.
Okay. Yeah, and so we did get the proposals back. They were higher than we originally thought, but I think they're realistic with the amount of work that we're going to get done, and we think we can figure out within the SPLOST budget how to fund it.
Thank you. Yes, that'd be awesome. We've been waiting on that a long time. Other thing is, I know usually this time of year we do trash cans for spring cleaning.
Yes, and thanks for reminding me on that. I meant to follow up on that last week. Yeah, we're gonna do that again this year. We're gonna try and do it with a little bit more notice, so we can make sure that they have the employees available to get these things emptied, because as quick as they can empty them, they're gonna fill them. So there's a lot of need for that service.
They did a great job last year. Everybody loved it. Thank you.
We're gonna go ahead and take a recess. We've got a long planning hearing tonight that starts in about 11 minutes. If you're here for the planning portion of the meeting tonight, if we're not back until 6:05, please don't throw the rocks. We've been meeting since 9:30 this morning, but we'll be back pretty close to 6 o'clock, maybe 6:05. We'll take a little bit of break, then we can maybe go to a finishing up. Okay? Stephanie, we're back on. Almost. Okay. We're going to go back into the regular session. We'll come back later and check to see if we need executive session tonight. So we're moving to our planning board tonight. I appreciate your patience with us this evening. It's been a long day, a lot of meetings. Item number 1 under the public hearings is the planning board is recommending approving an application by Victor Bender Luck, if I pronounce that okay, as agent for Marina Faye T. Griner to rezone 1.04 acres located on 1064 Old River Road from AR1 to I1 to allow for combination with an adjacent parcel for development of a That's timber. Is that timber?
Timber.
Yes, your timber and grain export distribution facility. This is map number 304, parcel number 4 in the first district.
This is actually related to the next 2 items, but this rezoning stands alone. So that the small parcel that's highlighted there with the red arrow is currently zoned AR1, and the land behind it is all zoned industrial. So the intention here is to rezone that 1 acre parcel to industrial and combine it with the other parcels and make one large industrial tract. And that's what this case is. The next 2 are about variances related to
The
this.
2 are a little different, but this one's. All right, any will open a public hearing. Anyone tonight speaking in favor of this rezoning? Is there anyone tonight who'd like to speak against this rezoning? Any objections? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. So is there any comments from the board? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1 with staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion for alternative 1 by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdette. All in favor say aye. All opposed no. And it carries. So we'll proceed with the second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Victor Vanderlut for agent of Marina Faye T. Griner to rezone 1.04 acres located on 1064 Old River Road from AR1 to I1 to allow for combination of an adjacent parcel and for development of a timber and grain export distribution facility map number 304, parcel number 4 in the first district. Motion to approve the second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Kiefer to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And it is approved. Item number 3 in the public hearing, the planning board recommends denying an application by Victor Vanderlut as agent for Marina Faye T. Griner for a variance. That says Griner. Griner or Griner?
Griner.
Faye T. Griner for a variance to reduce the required buffer on the southern border of the property located at 1064 River Road, map number 304, parcel number 4 in the first district. We'll open the public hearing, listen to Mr. Teresa first.
So this is the first of 2 variance applications. This one refers only to the parcel, again, the small 1 acre one that's highlighted there. The small 1 acre. And so this led to some confusion at the planning board, which resulted in a vote to deny it. And they did mean that. What they thought they were voting for, though, was to recommend denial of the entire southern border of not only the AR1 tracts, but the 2 industrial zone tracts. So that was their confusion, that they thought they were recommending denial of the variance for the entire southern border. Effectively, what they achieved was recommending denial for just the southern boundary of that small 1 acre tract. So it leads to a kind of a confusing situation for you all. But the next item on the agenda is dealing with the rest of the southern border for the other 2 parcels and the northern border. So that's just how the application was split up. So if you want to look at these individually, all we're looking at right now is the southern boundary of that highlighted, small 1 acre highlighted parcel there. And the request is to reduce the buffer requirement from 150 feet to 75 feet. But they did supply, and this is a graphic that shows it a little bit. So this is the requested, 75 on the southern boundary of the entire tract, and 25 on the north. I'll go into the north when we deal with the next case. This was supplied today and has a little bit, it's a little further away. This has a little more information.
I'll look in the packet already. That's all.
So what this shows is that there is existing woodlands and the wooded border will remain, and the reduction in the buffer requirement from 150 feet, the request is down to 75 feet, that they wouldn't necessarily use all of that. They just want to have the option to reduce it down as far as that, to a small at 75 feet. This graphic in fact shows that it's the actual wooded portion, which extends into the neighboring property, is about 120 feet. So it's kind of almost like a floating buffer, which you can't, control, because it could still get cut on the other property. But this is the current woodland boundary on the southern portion. But as I said, we're really only looking at this application. This case is only dealing with the southern border of the 1 acre tract, the very front of the, up here, that little one. But anything you decide on this one does affect, of course, the next one, because it's the rest of the southern border.
We'll consider them collectively, but act on them individually.
Exactly, yeah. And then I'll go ahead and talk about the northern boundary. The request is to reduce the buffer, the required buffer to 25 feet on the industrial zone property, but that's because they are asking to take into account the fact that there's a railroad in between the northern border and the next parcel over, so that's about 60 feet, give or take, all along. So that's kind of, it's not vegetated, but it is a spatial buffer. And on the other side, there's there's 5 residential parcels there, and that's actually the only portion that really needs your consideration, given that that's the AR1, and that's where the 150-foot buffer is required. For the remainder, the current zoning is actually industrial further along. So they could go up to the smaller industrial to industrial border at that point, which is 25 feet. They could, if they maintain the 150-foot buffer, they could sharply go right up to 25 feet as soon as they hit industrial land. So the intention is just to make it a standardized vegetated border all the way down the line.
Okay. We're in the public hearing. Is there anyone tonight speaking for this variance request?
I'm Victor Vanderloop, owner of Savannah Marine Terminal. What we're looking to develop at this parcel is basically a log laydown yard. So we'd be receiving logs and laying them on the ground, and then taking them and putting them in containers, export containers, and bringing them to the port. The other piece is some grain unloading. There's rail going on along the northern border, and we'd be unloading rail cars, about 10 cars per day, and directly into containers, and that would be for export as well. We're not looking to do any other construction on the parcel besides we'd just be looking at grading it and putting some concrete pads in the back. Those are just open concrete pads. And then there's an existing home on there that we would refurbish into an office and then have parking there. So no additional construction, no warehouse. We would be employing about 32 people. We have a similar operation in Savannah, and we have 32 people employed there, and it's going to be about the same size. So that would bring 32 jobs to the area. We're not going to do, like I said, we're not going to do any further processing of the materials, so noise will be limited, and therefore I think that's in line with the comprehensive county plan for the area. Ray Pittman is my engineer, and he's just explained the actual variance request a little in more detail.
Thank you. My name is Ray Pittman, and to give you a little background information as well, the entire tract is about 60 acres. The portion that's developable is about 10 acres. The portion in the rear of the tract goes all the way to the Ogeechee River, so the elevation drops off more than 10 feet, so it's a swamp back there, so you can't do anything with it, cannot. And then the rationale for the variance request is because of the layout requirements for the timber operation. We've shown on the plan the basic outlay of the timber laydown area, and it's minimized, and then they've minimized the spacing in between them as well. And so we have a road that goes around the timber operation, and we've reduced that to 40 feet because they'll have some truckers that will drive in both directions for picking up and laying down. And also, in addition, we wanted to be able to have access to the rail as well. So we've tried to configure it as minimum as possible. And this right here is the minimum configuration that will accommodate without major changes, if you will, to accommodate his operation. Again, the buffer on the south end, I believe what we did is I actually highlighted the trees that are there that will not be taken down. So the majority of the trees in the front, you've got about 75 feet that has existing trees there currently. They will not be removed. And then on the adjacent property, the farm, they've got about 45 feet of existing trees right there as well. Up on the north end, what we have is we have the rail there, and then further to the north, you have a road that goes through an easement through the rear of the properties, and I believe that's called Scuba Shack Road, that goes back to the concrete plant operation and also goes back to the borrow pit for the Scuba Shack. So that is back there as well. And so the distance that you have that is treed, and you also have the rail in there, and you also have the road in there, is about 165 feet minimum. And that's measured from the Google information itself. So we have tried to minimize the footprint. We've tried to be environmentally friendly, and we've tried to allow for proper operation of the facility itself.
Anyone else speaking for it tonight? I'm going to hear from anyone who may be objecting, maybe nobody. Have you talked to the AR property owner next to you, to the south?
No, we have not.
Did you get any response from your mailing?
No, we didn't receive any calls or emails or contact.
Okay, anyone tonight speaking an objection to this variance? Okay, seeing no one, then I'll close the public hearing, see if there's any questions or comments on the board. And that's my one concern comment, it's AR to the south end.
Right, that's
sure
what it's
the operator had a chance to.
I spoke with Brian, I had talked with Brian with IDA the other day, and that's another large tract, which will probably end up doing the same thing. That's that whole area is warehousing.
Yeah, it's perfect industrial area, no doubt about it. It's right next to the rail, and if it was industrial, 25-foot buffer was all you need right next to it, right? So 75 seems to be sufficient. I just know it's AR. We need to make sure that when they have a chance to speak, but they're not here tonight, so they have a chance. Okay. You have a question?
If I may just mention one thing, so I am the agent involved in the transaction representing Odell Talley, the owner of the larger portion, and I've continued since before I even listed the property to find out who the neighboring property owner is, and he's not even aware of who they are. Apparently, the gentleman who owned the property left it to his children, and he passed 5 or 10 years ago, something along those lines, and he's made an effort as a neighbor. I mean, Odell, as a neighbor, has made an effort to, get in touch with them and to no avail. So I just wanted to mention that.
Sir, state your name, please.
My apologies, Preston Andrews.
Okay. We've already closed the public hearing already, so I'll entertain a motion to move further discussion.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the staff, the 3 bullet points that staff recommended alternative one.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Floyd, second Mr. Kiefer. All in favor say aye. All opposed no. And it passes.
Mr. Chairman, I think staff recommended denial
No, staff recommended approval of planning board, remember that?
with planning board. Gotcha. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Alternative one with staff recommendations. I'll remove the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Victor Vanderlut as agent for the Lane of Fay T. Grunner for a variance to reduce required buffer on the southern border of a property located at 1064 Old Bear Road, map number 304, parcel number 4 in the first district. Motion for the second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second. Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burnett to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And it's approved. We're going to open a public hearing, item number 5. I'm going to read it. You've already talked to us about it. I don't know that we need to hear Tracy again unless you feel like we need to share something else. We'll see if there's anything from the public. So here's the item we're going to consider tonight. Planning Board recommends approving an application by Victor Vanderlut as agent for Odell Talley for a variance to reduce the required buffer to 75 feet located at 1054 Old River Road, map number 304, parcel number 9 and 9A in the first district. So is anyone tonight speaking for this variance request? And you can just acknowledge it. It's the same information as you just provided to us, right? Okay. So the record shows that you're not the mic, but the same information that you just provided for the previous item is submitted for the second item in the public hearing. Is anyone tonight speaking against or objection to this variance? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve alternative one of the staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Now, this is just staff recommendation, right?
Planning board approved this one.
Oh, they did approve this one? Okay. All right. Alternative one with staff and planning recommendations. Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdett. All in favor say aye. All opposed no. And it passes. Second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application of Victor Vanderlut as agent for Odell Talley for a variance to reduce the required buffer 75 feet located at 254 Old Field Road, map number 304, parcel number 9, and 9A in the first district. Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second Mr. Burdett to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye. All opposed no. And it carries. Item number 7 in the public hearings. The planning board recommends approving an application by Drayton Walker Companies LLC as agent for Robert and Lynette Waldauer to rezone 4.67 acres located at 4366 Highway 17 from AR1 to B3 with conditions to allow the development of a convenience store, map number 326, parcel number 17C in the first district. We'll open the public hearing, listen to Ms. Teresa first.
This proposal is to rezone to B3 this section on the southwest quadrant of this intersection of Highway 17 and Blue Bay Road. There's currently a convenience store gas station on the north, to the north of it, but the proposal is to install a Parker's on the south end. And that would be a convenience store and full-service kitchen serving all meals, 6 fueling stations, and 2 to 3 diesel fuel pumps. So the development will be served by private well and septic system, kind of where sewer's not running over there just yet. There is a stand of live oak trees present at that intersection where the roundabout's being widened, and the developers are obviously aware of that and are going to be willing to work with staff on any mitigation measures that we can all agree on as far as, installing permeable surfaces or moving parking around. So we're all aware of that. We're all working on making sure that we can preserve as many trees as possible.
Do we have any kind of ordinance about live oaks in our county?
We do not.
Are we in a public hearing? Is anyone like speaking for this rezoning?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Daniel Ben Israel. I am the real estate development manager for the Parker Companies, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And obviously, I support the rezoning application.
You already answered the first question. Where's the next Parker's coming?
After this one, that's to be determined, but we would certainly like to build many more stores in Effingham County and the surrounding areas. So we're looking for more sites, and we're happy to be able to work with staff, and they've been very supportive, and we're just looking forward to getting the store under construction and open hopefully before the end of the year or early next year.
Very good. We'll see if there's any objections. Anyone speaking an objection to this rezoning? Anyone not speaking an objection to this rezoning application? See no one will close the public hearing. See if there's any questions for the gentleman or discussion of the board.
I have a
motion?
question. I'm sorry. Do I have to follow? Yeah.
You have an objection to it?
No, sir. I have a question.
Okay, come on.
Question.
Sure, come on.
What's Parker's
Can
normally?
you turn the microphone to you?
I'm sorry.
That's why we record all this, and people who are listening can't tell who's talking.
I don't have a clue what I'm doing. My name is Carol Clemens. I live in the area, not at this particular location, but my question is, what is Parker's stand on the oak trees since there's no ordinance in the county to protect them?
Sure, I can answer that.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, if I may, we are aware of the existing vegetation on the site, and just first off, I'd like to say that we are pro-environment, pro-trees, and we will do anything that we can to preserve any trees on the site that we can. However, I will say that we do have a conceptual plan, and the way that the site is currently laid out, it's going to be extremely difficult to preserve those trees, but that's not to say that we won't be able to do something in the end because our site configuration may change. It's a work in progress. We put this plan together to get it in front of you for the rezoning. We still have not done complete engineering on the site. We're working on access plans with GDOT currently as well, and we may reconfigure the way that the diesel pumps are laid out on the site as well. So as we work through those issues and give consideration to preserving the oak trees, there are some large trees out there we would like to preserve as many of them as we can. There are a couple of them that are, they're large trees, but they're not the prettiest trees. But we will, where we cannot preserve the trees, we will certainly plant, do a very robust planting schedule, and dress up that corner of the site. We're going to do everything we can, including shifting the canopy or consider just reconfiguring the parking in that immediate area. But we will preserve whatever trees we can to the extent possible.
It takes about 100 years just to really get a nice live oak tree.
Yeah, yep.
History when we cut those down.
Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure, but our development team, we're very sensitive to tree preservation. Even where there's not an ordinance, we're going to take a hard look at preserving whatever trees that we can. Absolutely.
You've already closed the public hearing, so is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve with staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Floyd, second, by Mr. Burdette. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Any carries.
Thank you.
We'll move to the second reading. Consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Drayton Parker Companies, LLC, as agent for Robert and Annette Waldauer to rezone 4.67 acres located at 4366 Highway 17 South from AR1 to B3, with the condition to allow for the development of a convenience store, map number 326, parcel number 17C in the first district. Motion to approve the second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second by Mr. Burdette to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 9, public hearing. Planning board recommends approving an application by Tim Riddick as agent for Philip and Kathleen Morgan to rezone 54.75 acres located at 2302 Midland Road from AR1 to I1 to allow for a surface mine, map number 350, parcel number 18A in the first district. Open the public hearing. List Ms. Teresa first.
So this request is to rezone the entire tract. The applicant stated that they would be using about 20 acres for the actual pond, but they're choosing to rezone the entire tract. Midland's not on the truck route, the county truck route, but there are other surface mines in the area. A traffic study may be required. That would be up to the county engineer to determine if we would require any additional information from them during in the future. The staff has recommended approval of this, but we've used the stipulations that we've kind of developed over time to include that the business operation will meet the requirements of the truck route ordinance where possible, and also the ordinance, the surface mine operations road maintenance requirements that you all approved last year. And actually also after discussions with the tax assessor, we've started to include a requirement that applicants obtain a timber permit. We make that one of the actual conditions on tracts where we know that there's timbering is likely, just to ensure that we're capturing all activity in that area. So staff have recommended approval, and the planning board did also, but we've added these 8 conditions that become over time refined to try to deal with this.
The entrance, remember last, it's been a while back, we had the rule required to build this rock across the easement. What they did there?
Do a paved apron.
Is this going to have that included?
Yeah, it's going to be, if they're hauling dirt off site, which they are. So
It'll be the same.
So it's going to be pavement or rock?
It's a paved apron till you get to the back of the apron, and it's rock.
I think but it's across the easement, I believe. I forget the distance.
On the right way, yeah, to the back right way.
Okay, we're in a public hearing. We'll hear from those who are speaking in favor of this zoning.
Tim Wardyke. I'm the one that's going to be doing the construction here. So, if you got any questions, I can answer them.
My question would be, what the need is in the area since we have so many already.
Because I've been digging on this corner for all this time, and all of them come in on top of me, and I'm finishing one up. So, I mean, the construction needs of Effingham County, if you haven't looked around, they're astronomical. So, I just to stay competitive in my business, I need to have one also. And I mean, I have one now, but as soon as I finish it.
When will that be finished?
The one I have now?
Yes, sir.
A couple months.
How far up Midland are you there's Clifton's got one within
Just down the street from about a mile from Clifton's.
Hang on, Mike, small questions for you.
Okay, sure.
Anyone else speaking for this rezoning tonight? Anyone tonight speaking in objection to this rezoning? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing and see what questions, discussions we have on the board. I just want to raise some comments and thoughts to be thinking about. approved several trucks around the county. Not long ago, we approved a truck route because of our damage to our roads by heavy trucks. And those trucks, when they're loaded, create some of that damage to our roads. This truck route requires you to stay on the state road or an approved truck route road of the county, which means we have built that road to a standard where it would not be easily damaged by these heavy trucks. We allow trucks to have a business to take the shortest route to the truck route, not to put in jeopardy on them. My concern for the board tonight and for the applicant here is that when we approve these land surface mines on roads, I guess Alaska Engineer, I don't think Midland Road is approved truck route road. Okay. And I've seen this happen on Courthouse and McCall and other roads where we have these things going in and there's damage to our roads. And that's why we have this truck route road. So here's where I'm going is that I'm concerned that land surface mines need to be on a truck route road, a road that is built to the standard to handle that type of heavy equipment because it's a cost of stitches we have to repair the road. Or a state road. Both of those are built to a higher standard, and we're trying to, through our T-SPLOS, to take several of our roads and improve them and make them in a better fashion for truck routes, for things like this. So I'm really just cautioning the board before they approve tonight to think about, do we need to start restricting these land service lines to state roads and to county roads that are truck route roads and not put trucks on a road that's not approved that may even use low ground, which we know we're going to be spending millions of dollars on redoing that road. And that's going to be the shortest route. We got to use that shortest route because if I was coming out of there, I would not want to go down Midland Road to 17 to 19 to get around to my distribution centers around 21. I'm going to go low ground to McCall Road, which is going to be part of the parkway. So I see that we can create issues if we don't be careful to start restricting where land surface lines can go. So that's the big concern I have right now. And
I agree. I think that that's something we need to discuss for the future with the ordinance that we discussed in our workshop. You don't have any control of the trucks. You just run the pit. Are they your trucks?
They're my trucks. I only run on a small scale, so it's not. I'm not like the Cliftons and the Harcos, and you know, I only do what I do. I only have 4 trucks, so we only do a limited amount. However, you know, you're saying do it on a state road. Well, most of the time you got to do it where you can find the property that's good dirt. I mean, you know, state roads. Most of these state roads, I'll be honest, don't have very good material to haul out of. So if you were to do some type of thing for that, that would be very unwise because the dirt may not be good.
I understand. We have some other roads in the county that aren't state roads, like I think Blue Jay Road is a truck route road. It's not Courthouse.
No, the only non-state road that's a truck route is Old Augusta Road.
That's the only one?
Yeah, from 21 to, and that only goes to Fort Howard.
When we get the T-SPLOS roads redone, are several of those roads going to be built to a truck standard?
The ones we're discussing on the T-SPLOS list are, well, certainly the S on that we're putting in McCall, the connector between McCall and where the parkway is going to be is obviously to a truck standard.
And eventually McCall Road will be, because we hope to extend that as part of the parkway, that'll be a truck route, right?
That's right. And so, but that's not part of T-SPLOS, but when we do that, we're going to be looking at a thicker asphalt to meet those diesel standards. But we are looking at from Fort Howard roundabout up to Ebenezer roundabout. Some of those are on T-SPLOS, and we are doing some core samplings to get that to a thicker level. So we are looking at the roads where it's a logical place that trucks go to make it a heavier standard.
What does the state require? We found that out today. I was asking that question. When we have a land surface line on the state road, what do they require? Because you said ours is going to be gravel from the site to the road, or is it going to be paved from the road to the site?
Well, it's going to be, the right-of-way is going to be paved, and then it goes from where it stops being paved, I don't know how far in.
Basically, from the edge of pavement to the right-of-way line is paved, and then when it gets off the private property, or it gets onto private property, it's
Okay,
graded.
so it will be paved, not like the courthouse on the near right of the which is gravel all the way to the road, it's going to be paved, if there's a 60-foot right of way, it will be paved for 60 foot.
Well, across the easement, wherever the easement is,
Yeah.
to the next easement.
Yeah, I mean, what it,
I have never, you can go to any pit, I've never seen it done.
well, not 60 feet, I mean, it's just simply the across, and you're correct.
You said the right of way.
This is a relatively new requirement, maybe within the last 6 or 8 months. So there's only 2.
Well, I know of one that's been put in within that time period and it's not done. It's the one right there on the call, but Harco.
Approved in the past.
Harco's, no, I was at the meeting, so, but anyway. So,
There was only one that was an RV Baker one, and I think it was Stagecoach. One of the ones off of Stagecoach. And I think there was another one down there as well. But they take time to go in, and since this particular ordinance is only, about 6 months old, they're probably just getting off the ground at this point.
We did that because they were tearing up the road coming home.
oh, I know, I mean, yeah, if you've ever been to one of my pits, you won't even know where they're at. Because, if I didn't have a sign, because I don't like tracking on the road, and I've seen, it just causes havoc. So we try not to track, and we try to stay on low key, so I have no issues.
We have some pits that.
Oh, I know where they're at.
And it needs dirt all over the road.
I know where they're at, yes, sir. And there's not mine, I can guarantee you that.
You don't sell that to other companies like Parvo and Clifton?
No, sir. I mean, they're right next door, I mean,
Or any other companies, just your 4 trucks?
yes, sir.
That may be something we want to look at, this ordinance change, we will restrict in the future, maybe not this evening, I just want to bring it up to us, because I'm real concerned about that. I'd love to know that when we put $7 million on Low Ground Road, we wouldn't let down Low Ground Road.
I live on low ground, I wouldn't drive a pickup truck down low ground.
No, but we're
I mean,
fixing to
it's,
put a lot of money into it.
well, I hope so, because it's terrible.
You see my.
But I would not run low ground. I would go around. So
That's my concern, I mean.
Correct.
We want.
because I've seen the people go down there and they drive like crazy people.
We're probably going to do a bunch of full information on that, aren't we, in the near future?
It would probably have to come from maybe a source of like Elmeg or something to that effect, because it wasn't in T-SPOS. But when that road gets redone, it'll have to be a full depth reclamation.
I will say this, I don't know if y'all realize that y'all approved, we have a sewer treatment plant on there, and them trucks drive that road every day to get to that sewer treatment plant to do their dumping. So,
Very straight out. I'm messing with you.
I don't know, you can't mess with it, that's your business.
For me,
No more problem.
for the continuing discussion, for me, it's, I would want to restrict the business on this property, and look to compete with other companies, because the companies are big, and I'm all about the small business, man, you know that. But I would like to see us give, the tax assessor a chance at doing something to help offset some of the road damage that maybe we have, and start something like that. That would be nice to see.
I will say one other thing, I apologize, I don't mean to speak over you, but I don't know if y'all know, when we buy tags, we have to pay an extra fee
Buy tax for what?
for our dump trucks and our big trucks.
That's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, no, we have to pay an extra fee for driving on the roads in Effingham County.
What extra fee is that?
There's an extra fee. Heavy.
County tax?
Yes, sir. It's a heavy use. Every truck has to pay extra money.
Yeah, I pay that every year. It's costing me.
What's that now?
It doesn't fix our roads.
Well, what is the extra tax for Effingham County?
Highway use tax.
Highway use tax, correct, yeah.
22.90, that's a federal tax.
Wow.
Has nothing to do
You
with
didn't go to us. And help us on the county roads.
Well, I didn't know
I'm on
that.
state.
It's $580 a year per truck. I got paid every.
That's right.
Well, good discussion, it's something we really got to stay on top of. And that's my caution to the board, is that we think about, we've got an ordinance, and keep big trucks off non-truck routes. The more we do this, the more we're circulating our ordinance. So if we have citizens comments or questions from the board, maybe an issue we address, like you said, to our ordinance another day.
Yeah, no, I think that's just something we need to address or, you know, further discussion as we develop this.
I agree. I think you look at this as what we have in place as of today. But yeah, that's all good discussion, but we need to vote on it, what we got today.
Okay. Yeah. You have a motion?
I do, make a motion that we approve alternative one with staff and planning board recommendations.
I'll second that.
Motion, Mr. Floyd, second, Mr. Burdette. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Any carries. Item number 10 is our second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Tim Wordike. As an agent for Philip and Kathleen Morgan to rezone 54.75 acres located at 2302 Midland Road from AR1 to R1 to allow for a surface mine map 350 parcel number 18A in the first district. Motion to approve second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Floyd, second, Mr. Burdette, to approve the second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Any carries. Thank you, sir. Item number 11, public hearings. The planning board recommends approving an application by Robert Nolan Conley for a variance located at 300 Zettler Loop to allow for the use of a camper RV as a temporary dwelling during the construction of a residence. Property on zone AR1, this is map 417B, parcel number 38 in the second district.
So the applicant has applied for a building permit to bring another structure in as a residential unit. There have been delays in the design and the shipping of this structure. And so the application is to allow them to live in a camper while they wait out the delays. Now we have, at the planning board, we did get more specific information. It's in the permit drawings will be available by May 28th, and then the building will ship by August 20th. So assuming that all goes forward, then staff is recommending approval and has added conditions that relate to that the complete applications, we need the plans, they haven't, the complete plans haven't arrived, but the complete plans would be submitted within a month of tonight's approval, assuming we approve it, which would work if they were delivered by May 28th. And then the camper may be occupied for up to 6 months during construction. And the applicant indicated at the planning board that he thought it would really only take a few months after the delivery to get everything straightened out. So the applicant was agreeable with the conditions. And staff and the planning board both recommending approval. This is the site.
Okay. Anyone tonight speaking for this variance request?
Hi, my name's Katie Conley. I'm the wife of Nolan Conley. And yeah, we're just building a steel building home. And with the COVID, there's delays on the delivery of the steel and all. So that's why we just want to move the fifth wheel over on the land and live there.
Okay. Did you want to speak as well?
I'm her father-in-law, and I want them out. Can I get approval? And also her pastor too, so we need some laughter after what we've been going through. They're going on vacation, so by the time they get off vacation mid-June, we'll have the permits in. And once we get the drawings in on May the 28th, we'll send them to our local engineer so he can combine the two, because it's a steel building with residential, and then we'll be good to go. So.
This permit drawings will be available May 28th.
That's her husband, my stepson, got a call from the owner of Steelco himself saying that there was a delay. They apologized. They sold their home in November, thinking they're gonna be in their home in March. So it's been a long delay, but we got a direct phone call, so.
Father-in-law, you can state your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pastor Mitch Lynn, yeah.
Thank you.
So it's 6 months from the night that we approve it, if you approve it. Anyone speaking against this variance request? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. So if there's any questions or comments from the board?
I'm seeing delays and everything like this.
Yeah.
Common.
It's not uncommon to go 6 months. Have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the planning and staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Keeper, to approve the planning board and staff recommendations. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. And it passes. Second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Robert Nolan County for a variance located at 300 Zettler Loop to allow for the use of a camper RV as a temporary dwelling during the construction of a residence. Property is on AR1, map number 417B, parcel number 38, second district. Motion to approve second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Keeper. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And it carries. Well, there you go. It's pretty. Item number 13, on public hearing, the planning board recommends approving an application by Keith D. Robert and Robert A. Walden for a variance located at 111 South Court, Zone R1, to reduce the rear setback from 25 feet to 13 feet to shade an existing slab, map number 436A, parcel number 18 in the second district. Open the public hearing, listen to Ms. Teresa first.
So as I'm going to show you, so this is the lot, it's the highlighted one there, it is on the corner, and the back property line is angled. And what that means is that the current house, well, everything fits perfectly within the setbacks, no problems at all. But the applicant wishes to place this cover over their existing patio, and that would, with the overhang and everything, would actually infringe slightly into the setback because of the angled back lot. And what it would mean is coming down to about 13 feet, just to be safe, somewhere between 15 and 13 feet. So the setback requirement is 25 feet, and they just simply can't meet that with the patio. The patio is currently in there, that hasn't been a problem, but putting a structure over the concrete patio is what's causing encroachment into the setback. So they're asking for approval for variance to allow this shade structure to be corrected over the patio.
Anyone tonight speaking for this variance request?
Hey, good evening. I'm Keith Walden, my wife Roberta. We're requesting approval of this variance to construct this patio cover because of the irregularity of the lot. It's very strange.
Hang around, there might be a question for you. Anyone tonight speaking in objection to this variance request? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing and hear from the board and commission. And when I first saw this, my question is always, what's the hardship? Because that's what you have to have. But then when you realize it's a corner lot, and if you have a normal lot, you have a front and a back and two sides. This lot only has one side. If this was a side, it would be a permitted setback within 2 feet of it. Because it's a corner lot, it has two fronts and a back and one side. And the house to the back of it is facing on the side. So I was first kind of opposed to this, but I realized it's really to the side of that house, and if you had two sides, you'd probably approve a 2-foot variance anyway. That's my 2 cents. I don't see the issue with the board. I see what the question, comments,
It is over an existing slab. I mean, you're using existing.
Existing slab.
That's correct.
I'm good. The only thing I want to make sure you have enough, because of the way that line is, it looks like it's going to be closer than 13 feet, which is fine. You see how that, it's not perpendicular?
Yeah.
I just, when it goes to the building department and the inspector comes out, I don't want you to have a problem.
And that was the issue. Initially, the application was actually 15 feet, and this is just simply for Q Public. I thought that was closer to 13, so if we could do a more or less, or, plus or minus of the, because I don't want them getting protected.
I know what I mean.
So the questions for 13, you felt that probably something. I don't think you want to get too much close to the neighbor's property.
No, I don't think they're going any more than what they're planning on going. I just don't.
I'd hold it to 13.
I don't want the inspector to go out and technically be inside.
Yeah, if we could do a plus or minus. I mean, I was hoping that the inspector, that we can talk to them and say they're.
Yeah, that's right.
So the recommendation is not before you start building it, bring that and let them look and inspect and make sure you're not 12 and a half or 12, okay? Make sure it's just the 13.
They will be inspected in that. They will be inspected.
Right. Just make sure it stays within that variance, okay? If it's approved.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions, discussion? Get a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the planning board and staff recommendations.
Okay.
Motion Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Kiefer, to approve with planning board staff recommendations. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. And it carries.
Thank you.
The second reading, consideration to approve a second reading of an application by Keith B. and Roberta A. Walden for a variance located at 111 South Court Zone R1 to reduce the rear setback from 25 feet to 13 feet, shade an existing slab, map number 436A, parcel number 18, the second district. Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Motion Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Floyd to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And it carries. We move to a sketch plan, item number 15. The planning board recommends approving an application by Hayden Rollins as agent for Creekside Savannah LLC for a sketch plan located on Creekside Boulevard off of Noble C. Conway Road for Cherokee subdivision. Phase 2 of 76 lots, map 436, parcel number 46 in the second district.
So this is phase 2 of Creekside, and what we're looking at, the project is served by county water and sewer. You all gave a waiver on the reuse lines, but there will be sidewalks, because that is required in this one. At the pre-application meeting, staff met with the engineers and developer, and we did agree to allow reduction of the road right-of-way in the section adjacent to wetlands, because the property line, there was a property line infringement by neighboring development, which they only discovered after they've done all their own engineering work. So the county engineer has agreed to that, and we'll just be monitoring that as construction goes forward. The subdivision design complies with their plan development document, and it was originally approved in 2006 and amended in 2018 to change the townhome to single-family house ratio, and increase the dwelling sizes and reduce density, so and single-family lot sizes and setbacks. We will follow up on this sketch plan with a notice to proceed, and in that's based on all of the ordinance requirements that are applicable, as well as anything we discussed during that pre-application meeting, and that's what we'll use going forward for reviewing any of the site development plans. So staff recommends approval.
This drawing up here makes much more sense. The drawings I had in the packet, they don't look anything like that.
Okay, so this is...
We have
here we go.
drawings.
That's the red, and I highlighted it in yellow, that's phase 2. Phase 1 has been approved. I don't believe construction has started on phase 1. I don't
So
believe.
in the red there is phase 2?
Yeah, phase 2 is, so they're proposing, yes, this is phase 2, the red outlined, and I highlighted in yellow, yellow. That's phase 2.
I couldn't visualize down that piece of land at all. I just keep it right
We approved the final plat for phase 1 last fall, and it is, the roads are there, and, I don't believe any building permits have been pulled yet, but they're ready to go ahead with getting the site ready do the site prep for phase 2.
What was the picture you showed before that?
This is from our zoning, no, it's not.
So what is that picture of?
That is from our interactive GIS, and that is just, the green is actually just the highlighted of the parcel. So what's existing is the lots from phase 1 is approved, the final plat is approved, and we draw in the parcels. So once the final plat is approved and recorded, the parcel numbers are assigned and the lot lines are drawn in GIS. That's what you're seeing up there. And then the arrow is pointing to the sort of general area. Phase 2 is coming in below that.
I have to trust you, these pictures just don't make a lot of sense to me.
And this is the same thing. So this is from Q Public. So this is just, Creekside Boulevard, and then there's the street going off there to the left. And we're just coming to the next company.
All right. Any questions from the board? Need a motion to approve the sketch plan?
Make a motion to approve alternative 1 with planning board staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second Mr. Floyd. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. And it carries. Move to another public hearing again. The planning board recommends approving an application by Mayor Scottia, I never would have that right. For a rural business conditional use located at 500 Keller Road for equine boarding and lessons facility. Doing business as James Stables LLC, that in 452 parcel number 3 of the second district. Public hearing.
So this is an application for a rural business conditional use, and the criteria we use to review this are following intent. So the equine boarding and lesson facility we believe is compatible with the rural setting. The structure, the business will operate out of an existing barn structure. Public road frontage, yes, the property is frontage on Keller Road. And then acreage, we require at least 3 acres, and this property is 15.88 acres. And it's all AR1 zoning around there. It's very much the heart of the ag residential in the south end of the county.
Okay, very good. Anyone speaking for this application tonight? Rural business conditional use? Anyone speaking in objection to it? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion from the board.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1 with planning board staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Deloach. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of the application by Meredith Scottia for a rural business conditional use located at 500 Keller Road for an equine boarding and lesson facility, doing business as James Stables LLC, map number 452A, parcel number 3 in second district. Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Burdette, second by Mr. Deloach to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And carries. Got it. Another public hearing, the planning board recommends approving an application by Thomas L. and Lucia Williams to rezone 5.43 acres located at 2110 Highway 17 North from AR1 to AR2 for the preparation of a home site, map number 269, map number 18 in the 3rd district. Open the public hearing.
So this parcel is 5.43 acres. You see there on Highway 17 North, and this is the proposed parcel split. They intend to split out 1 acre from the front of it there on the highway. And so in order, because they're bringing the parcel size down below 5, the entire tract has to be rezoned to AR2. And not recommends approval.
Anyone mind speaking for this rezoning? Anyone in opposition would like to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Floyd to approve staff and planning board recommendations. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. And carries. Second reading, consideration to approve a second reading of an application by Thomas L. and Lucia Williams to rezone 5.43 acres located at 2110 Highway 17 North from AR1 to AR2 for the separation of the home site, map number 269, number 18 in the 3rd District. Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Deloach, second by Mr. Floyd to approve the second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Item number 20 on the public hearings, Planning Board recommends approving an application by David E. Deason to rezone 16.5 acres located on Honey Ridge Road from AR1 to AR2 for the creation of a 5-lot subdivision, map number 273, parcel number 10 in the 3rd District.
So this was, some of this land was before you a few months ago when the church that owned it rezoned the tip of the triangle, 4 acres of that, to separate that off and then sell it to the church that was occupying it. This land was bought by local residents so that they could better control the subdivision and development of the parcel on Honey Ridge. And their intent is to create 5 lots. They'll have to be rezoned from AR1 to AR2 because they are ranging in size from 2 to 4.8 acres, which is in keeping with the other large lots in that general area. Because there are 5 lots, this is a major subdivision, and so this will be, if approved tonight, this will be back before you at the next meeting on June 1st as a final plat to be approved as a major subdivision.
We're in a public hearing. Anyone would like to speak for this rezoning tonight?
Only if you have any questions.
We'll come back if we have any objections. Anyone would like to speak in objection to this rezoning? Seeing no objections, we probably don't have any questions. We'll close the public hearing and see if the board has any questions. If not, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Floyd, second Mr. Floyd to approve staff and planning board recommendations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Second reading, consideration to approve a second reading of an application by David E. Deason to rezone 16.5 acres located on Honey Ridge Road from AR1 to AR2 for the creation of a 5-lot subdivision, map number 273, parcel number 10 in the 3rd District. Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading.
Motion, Mr. Lowe, second Mr. Kiefer to approve the second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Number 22, public hearing. The Planning Board recommends approving the application by James M. Carlson for a conditional use located at 1979 Highway 119 South, Zone B2, for the addition of a crematorium to an existing funeral home, map number 345, parcel number 1, 3rd District. For the public hearing.
So crematorium is permitted as a conditional use in B2, which this is already zone B2, and the crematory operations require state license, and so as our recommended condition that we would require that the operator obtain a state license and actually then provide us with a copy so that we have that on file. The crematory will operate on an existing building on the site. Staff recommends approval, and the planning board recommends approval.
You said something about this is a conditional use, not permitted use, right?
That's correct. According to Article 3, General Provisions, Section 3.6, cemeteries, mausoleums, and crematoriums, crematoriums are allowed to as conditional use in B2. This is currently zone B2. So
I'm going to try to streamline this a little bit first and see if there's anyone speaking objection to this conditional use tonight. Stephen, I'll see if you have any comments to speak for.
My funeral home, it does have 3 licensed funeral directors. All of them are already licensed to operate crematory, and our crematory is fully licensed already prior to asking for this. And we can present that.
All right. And seeing no one speaking in objection to this, having heard from anyone speaking for it, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. See if there's any questions or comments from the board.
I'm just curious what other kind of business you gonna get, James.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
we got some other stuff working. So we do have the restaurant coming across the street, hopefully August 1st. So steakhouse and seafood. So.
Still mixing up.
Yeah, we're not getting anything. My wife said if I do anything else, that I'm gonna find somewhere else to go, so.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Lowe, second, Mr. Floyd, to approve the staff and planning board recommendations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank y'all.
Second reading, consideration to approve a second reading of an application by James E. Carlson for a conditional use located at 1979 Highway 119 South, Zone B2, for the addition of a crematory to an existing funeral home, map number 345, parcel number 1, 3rd District. Motion?
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. Rose, second by Mr. Keeper to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Item number 24 in the public hearings. The planning board recommends approving an application of Jackie Wilford to rezone 8.9 acres located at 1745 Highway 17 South from AR1 to B3 for the future development of a youth center church program in Mental Plaza, map number 297, parcel number 59C in the 4th District. Public hearing.
So this line is currently zoned AR1, as is the tract next to it, and I want to just point that out. There's a pond that's split by the property line. Mr. Wilford owns both parcels and the pond on that. And that's important because we've already done an LDA review and have not yet issued the permit, but only because this application came in. So we've already reviewed this site development plans for the youth center on this tract of land, and the stormwater the drainage was going to go into the pond that is, straddling the property line essentially. And because they were both current at that time AR1, there's no issue with that. Mr. Wilford then indicated that he wanted to add a retail plaza component to generate income for the church, and that triggered this rezoning. So he's asking for B3. If you remember, just right across Midland, or Highway 17 in Midland, is where the new Dollar General is going in. So and there's a gas station there too. So this is becoming a little commercial hub, this intersection. Because there's additional buildings potentially planned, if the retail plaza goes ahead, we will require additional review of the site development plan. So essentially the LDA, which was approved but not issued yet, really becomes void. We'll have to sort of start from scratch and look at this again. And then the stormwater potentially becomes an issue, because if one of the tracts is B3 and the other that shares the pond is AR1, then what does that mean? So this may be back before you in the future too. We don't know. But what we're looking at now is Mr. Wilford's application to rezone the 8.9 acres to B3 so they can proceed to this plan for the retail plaza to support church operations.
Sure, I understand. Anyone tonight speaking for this application?
I can answer your questions, Mayor.
Sounds good. Anyone tonight speaking, any objections to this rezone? Before I close the public hearing, any questions for this gentleman?
This piece of property that has a little pavilion type?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve with planning board staff recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Deloche to approve the planning board staff recommendations. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And it carries. Second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Jackie Williford to rezone 8.9 acres located at 1745 Highway 17 South from AR1 to B3 for the future development of a youth-centered church program in Retail Plaza, map number 297, parcel number 559C in the 4th District. Have a motion?
Making a motion to approve second reading. Sure.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Burdette to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And it carries. Thank you, sir. Item number 26 in the public hearing. The planning board recommends denying an application by Ben H. Blackstone Jr. for a variance located on Pound Road to reduce the road frontage requirement from 150 feet to 113 feet for an AR1 zone parcel at number 321, parcel number 7 of the 4th District.
So this originally was a much larger tract, and it has been, over the past 6 months, buyers have purchased, buyers have purchased this 40 acres, and then this was, I think, 11 acres. And I could sign those two, they were 2 subdivisions, but two splits from the parcel. But after that, I had to stop with the way calendar here before any further splits proceed under the zoning administrator. But because the owners wanted to continue selling this 26-acre tract, we discussed creating a final plat to bring it in as a major subdivision. When we were reviewing the final plat, we realized that up here in this section, there's no road frontage for this 80, almost 82 acres, except for this small area. That's an existing easement, an existing trail, private road. It's about 113 feet, depending on how you measure it. The surveyor measured it as 113 feet. So at that point, we had to stop everything because we realized we couldn't proceed with this. There's no road frontage. There's not adequate road frontage in AR1 for this large, potentially developable 82 acres. Even though they had a buyer for this and he was just going to build a home site, it was unclear what was going to happen here. At the planning board, there was some opposition from neighbors who were concerned that this would end up being a dense subdivision. They didn't want to see that development on Pound Road. And I don't know if Mr. Blackstone or anyone is here tonight to talk about this. I wasn't able to reach him today, but I know there was some discussion with potentially just selling all of this to one neighboring owner, and I haven't heard that that has been completed or not. But in any case, we're here to consider the variance for this frontage here. So, and if that were approved, then he could come back, the owners could come back at a later meeting and ask the board to approve the final plat of a major subdivision. 2 lots have already been sold. Because it's 4 within a year, I have to pass it off to the board. So if they are proceeding with the plan as I knew it, that they will need this variance in order to present this 4-lot subdivision to you as board. I do know that they were in negotiations to potentially sell all of this to a neighbor and sort of avoid this whole application, but I hadn't heard from Mr. Blackstone by the time I left my office around 3 each day. So that's where we stand.
Okay.
Does it hurt anything to table? I guess we can hear the public hearing.
Yeah, because I need to know more about why would they, anyway, we'll see who's here to speak for or against tonight, and then we'll see if we can table it, get more information, or make a decision. Anyone tonight speaking for this variance request? Anyone here tonight in objection to this variance request? You come to the microphone. And once she's coming, can you clarify something for me? AR1 has to have 150-foot.
It's 150-foot road frontage, yes. And staff recommended denial because actually, regardless of the fact that the partners who own, or the family members who own it, have already, promised this, and I in fact have this spot sitting on.
So I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. The staff thought there really wasn't a hardship in the sense that they could easily create 150-foot road frontage by reconfiguring this portion here that's been surveyed out for sale. So there really, we just felt there wasn't
well, that's what I'm looking at. I can't see from that map the hardship.
Yeah, there didn't appear to be a hardship. The planning board agreed with that. They recommended denial as well.
I am here to speak against whatever we're talking about.
We're strictly talking about 150-foot variance, not a subdivision or anything else.
Okay, I have to let you know that my name is Carol Clemens. I am the executor for the estate of Christopher T. Clemens that sits right smack in the middle of all this. I've not received any kind of communication from the county as far as hearings, or not that I think that I should have. I'm in the dark here, is basically what I'm saying. I don't want this subdivided. I mean, not into a 300-home unit.
We're not discussing subdividing tonight. This is strictly to be given a 150-foot variance on this AR1 property. That's what we want.
I have a question about that then. Are we specifically talking about Which parcel are we talking about? Because I can't see the map very well.
Look over here. So this is what we're talking about. This is the variance. This tract should have at least 150 feet of road frontage in order for us to be able to
Okay,
proceed.
okay. So this is not about the 13 or 11 or 13 acres across the little trail that we're talking about.
This has already been sold.
And that is settled and everything, okay. So we're specifically talking about the lane coming into the greater part of property.
We're really just talking about the configuration that had they drawn the line differently,
Yes.
we really wouldn't be here.
Okay, all right. I have nothing to offer as far as the subdivision. I just wanted to be clear because this is the first if my neighbors hadn't told me y'all were meeting tonight, I wouldn't have known. So, thank you.
So we're talking about that, this right here, right?
I have 5 acres right in the middle of all of it.
Now, this is Mrs. Clemens' property.
Yes.
We're the executor for this, and we did send letters to everyone within 200 feet of the property. This is the frontage here. There's just a, let's see.
So it's just that one little square.
See the little square right there, that's me.
Yeah,
So that puts me right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
Right, but where's the buffer that he's trying to ask for a variance?
No, it's the road frontage, not a buffer, it's the road
I
frontage.
meant the road frontage,
Yeah, so this is the actual tract, it's about 107 acres, and they have
Everything on Pond Road, he wants a 150 foot down to 75.
No, he wanted, yes, about 113. Had they configured it differently, they really could have avoided a variance by just giving 150 feet, to this rear parcel, but their potential buyer wanted the road frontage, or there was something about, this is how it's been drawn. They do have a buyer for this, but from what I've heard, it's possible that the family that owns it may just sell it to a
The issue
neighbor.
for us is do we want to give a variance for a buffer, and that's what's the question. Anyone else speaking objections now?
Hey, good evening. I'm Brittany Jameson. I was here at the last meeting as well, and I think that's where we dove into the, potential of the subdividing. So I won't go there with y'all tonight. But I do strongly agree with what you were saying, that it, in my opinion, lacks hardship. That I think if they had reconfigured these lines differently, had they done a bit more due diligence and homework, that approximately 26 acres, I believe, that's to the bottom portion of that they could have allowed 150 foot there for access to this 80 some odd acres. And if that has not been signed off on yet, I don't know, obviously, but I just feel like there are other options here instead of allowing this variance and setting a precedence for our neighborhood, and knowing this road and the area that they're requesting that variance in. It just would seem very difficult for me, I would think, to access it, as I expressed last time as well. So we're here tonight in opposition of this. My husband would be here with me if he could, but seeing that the Blackstones have not made a presence, it's my feelings that they should have to reconsider how they're configuring these parcels. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a different objection than the lack of hardship that you see that was presented by the first two people?
I don't have an objection, but again, I'm still very unclear about if, let's just say theoretically, if
We need to come to the microphone to get one time.
if the variance was approved,
You gotta get on the record.
if the variance was approved, who would benefit the most? Who would own that strip of land?
Yeah, he owned it, just, we just.
He would just be able to dispose of it as he saw fit, is that correct? The reason I ask is because behind all of this property in question is the Fox Pen Hunting Club. And as far as I know, it is landlocked except for that little lane. And just so that you're aware, that opening up that lane would open up that area for subdivision as well. So this is not something that's been brought up before now, but I do know for a fact that that is something that's been discussed with me in my front yard a number of times. You know, why don't you buy this little strip of land and then I'll pay you for it so I can have access to my property. And really, I think it's more than just this 85 or 87 acres that surround me. It's about opening up the fox pen as well and the potential for that. So I'm, as Ms. Jameson said, going on record to request that we deny the variance.
Thank you. Understood. Anyone else tonight speaking? An objection? For the new objection, maybe?
Good evening. My name is David Wood. I spoke at the first meeting concerning this. I really don't have anything different than my neighbors, but we do know that there are housing developments going up around us on 17, and as well as in back of us. I can't remember the name of the little road, but they've cleared all that land as well for housing developments. And that's what we on Pound Road would like to prevent as long as we can. And this gentleman, Ben, if it was important for him, he would have been here. And I as well approve of this variance. Thank you.
Before that could be subdivided, it'd have to be rezoned.
No, it doesn't.
It's AR1 now, right?
The tracks are all pretty large, so, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a 26.
I don't think they're concerned about 5 acre tracts, they're concerned about a subdivision. And before we do a subdivision, they have to get a AR 5, 4, 6. You hear about that. That's not even the question tonight. We're not approving any subdividing of any size right now. We're just trying to decide if we should allow a variance. We've heard the objections.
If this final plat can go forward and come back to you, that's really what this is about. But staff would recommend it now. It can be reconfigured.
Okay. All right. Anyone else speaking objection? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. I don't see the hardship, gentlemen, for the variance, but I'll yield to what your thoughts are.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you 100%. I fully agree with the planning board. I think we can deny this and move on because they can clearly do what they need to do with make 150-foot road frontage.
I'll put that form of motion.
Yes, I will make a motion to deny the request for 113-foot easement.
Second.
Motion to deny by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Burdette. All in favor say aye. All opposed no. And it is denied. You don't need a second reading because it was denied.
Mr. Chair, just clarification for minute purposes. Your motion is to deny the variance, correct, Commissioner?
Yes, deny the variance, yes.
All right, moving down to number 28, is there any second reading for tonight? Public hearing, the planning board recommends approving an application by Leon L. Hood Jr. to rezone 5 acres out of 10 acres located at 259 Shirley Drive from AR1 to AR2, map number 370C, parcel number 2 of the 4th district.
Mr. Hood, who I believe was going to call on tonight, but we appear to have lost our connection, so I will represent him or make a presentation. Mr. Hood owns this 10-acre tract and wishes to split it as follows. So into leave one 5-acre tract that will remain AR1 and then split the portion closest to Shirley Road into 2 2.5-acre tracts. He's included an access easement. He indicated at the planning board that he intended to remain living there and make one of the lots available to a family member, leaving the center one as a buffer between them. But that's his current plan. So as this is currently zoned AR1, the two 2.5-acre tracts have to be rezoned to AR2. Staff is recommended approval.
Okay, anyone not speaking in favor of this rezoning? Anyone speaking objection to this rezoning? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the staff and planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Floyd to approve the planning board staff recommendations. All in favor say aye. All opposed no. And it carries. The second reading. Consideration to approve a second reading of an application by Leon L. Hood Jr. to rezone 5 acres out of 10 acres located at 259 Shirley Drive from AR1 to AR2, map number 370C, parcel number 2 in the 4th district.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Mr. Deloach, second Mr. Floyd, to approve the second reading. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And it carries. Item number 30 on the public hearing. Planning Board recommends approving an application by Freddie H. Mitchell for a variance located at White Branch Road to waive the restrictions of no more than 3 lots being served by an unpaved private road and allow for the creation of 2 additional home sites in the 4th district.
So a few months ago, Mr. Mitchell was before you asking to rezone this parcel. He was going to split out the 3 acres where his house is located and then split the rear 10 acres into 2 5-acre tracts that would remain AR1 for family members. And staff recommended denial, planning board recommended approval, but staff recommended denial because that would be creating new lots on White Branch, which is a private road, not maintained by the county. The planning board and board recommended or voted to approve this, but in order for it to work, a variance would be required because our ordinance essentially prohibits me from signing the plat to create new lots on a private road. So it was suggested that Mr. Mitchell come back with a variance requesting, come back with an application requesting a variance from the ordinance, the section of the code that prohibits the additional lots on an unpaved road. And that's what we are doing tonight.
Okay, we're in a public hearing. Is anyone speaking for this variance?
Good evening, I'm Freddie Mitchell, and I requested the variance that y'all were recommended at the last commissioner board. And it was approved by the zoning committee, and this is the final step, y'all approve it. I've already got the 2 5-acre parcels. The health department's already approved 2 home sites, septic tank, drain fields, and everything. My family members wants to build on it.
Anyone else speaking for? Anyone tonight speaking objection to this variance? See no speaking objection?
Just a question. I believe this would now produce Forbes Buck, representing a adjoining landowner. I believe this would now produce 8 lots on White Branch. Does that cause any issues in terms of variances of not having a paved road?
You know, it's interesting because just recently we received a request for an address for a gentleman who owns a parcel. I'm sorry, it's back here, and I didn't include that. And I rejected it. That we would, so we would not provide an address because he didn't have legal right, or he needed to show us that he had legal right. Well, he produced the original subdivision plat, which showed that there's at least 6-7 lots originally that was subdivided off White Branch Road, more than 20, 30 years ago. So we issued an address to that gentleman, and his building permit application is in now, so he's proceeding. So even though our ordinance currently limits lots, more than 3 lots on a private road, there was a time when the county was approving subdivisions on a private road of lots of more than 3 lots. And that was a long while ago, but this is a re-subdivision of the subdivision, so it is a separate matter. But it does kind of throw a cloud on the whole discussion of how many lots
you have a private road and you want to get, and there's no subdivision, you're trying to limit it to how many? 3?
Right, for any new development.
3. This is one that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lots.
Well, actually,
with the 3 that's going to be.
These shouldn't be counted. They apparently do some of the time culverts, but they really aren't. We don't consider them. We're talking about this tract here.
If I could say, that Sage Point is the residence entrance for most of those lots.
I got you. I'm looking at that right. Yeah.
how many actual additional lots will this create?
This will create 2 additional lots.
2 additional to to the current, how many?
There's the lease, do you know,
Well, there's 4 lots on there right now that the only way you can get to your house is on White Branch Road.
But you know all those?
Pardon?
You know all those?
No.
I think there's at least 6 from that original plot, which I could dig up.
Make it go to 8.
Exactly, yeah. Or there might be more. I think Mr. Mitchell, you might have, that your parcel, I think that might have been split at some point.
Yes, my son lives next door to me. At the beginning, we bought these 28 acres together. And 6-7 years ago, we split them. I got half of it, he got half of it. And at the original time, you know, the ordinance said you could split the property or have your family members for every 5 acres that you own. You know, you could have family members on it. So since then, the ordinance changed where you could only have 3 lots adjoining the main road, whatever. And the variance is just to grandfather me in from years ago.
Thank you, sir. Did that answer your question?
So my question is no concern with Mr. Mitchell. My concern more is that there's I believe a 60-acre tract at the end of White Branch
That's the
Road.
one.
Yes, but you can access it from the other end off of
But that's the
little
tract
horse pen somewhere in there.
that Mr. Roush, I think, owns it. That we issued an address because he produced the original subdivision plot that showed that White Branch Road, even though it's private, directly connected to his line.
A larger subdividing, we could ask them to go off of Horse Pen Road, what you're saying, maybe? Or we would, I think he may want to.
There's each of the 5 you talking about?
Yeah, if he want to come back and have 10 lots back there, 6 acres apiece.
Oh, I mean, any effort to subdivide that we would have to bring them before you all to consider for a variance, just as we did with Mr. Mitchell. But it was, I had never seen that original plot of the original subdivision, but the owner of the 60-acre tract had it, because when he closed fairly recently, he made sure that he had everything lined up, and whatever attorney he used did make sure that he had that too, because they knew there was an issue with the private road. But it was a plot of record, it was a lot of record on White Branch Road, so we issued an address. But any effort to subdivide it would have to come before the board.
But there comes the issue down the road. You had 10 lots back there, 3 here, and 4 others. You've got so many lot of traffic on the road. It's private. And we're going to hear a miracle about trying to fix that road. So,
It's their road.
huh?
It's their road, though, it's not ours.
That's true. I just got a statement from Teresa saying that road has got to be maintained by me and the owners of that live off of that road. And that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
I mean,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I realize.
But you understand, that's the thing, as long as you understand that it's not ours, it's yours.
But also,
And it's noted on the plat.
Right.
I mean, Mr. Mitchell's subdividing these lots for immediate family. So that's why I support the request, because it's for immediate family.
It's a little different. Okay. I didn't see anyone speaking in objection. Make sure I asked that question. Okay. We're going to close the public hearing and entertain motions on board.
I'll make a motion to approve the request, planning board recommendations based on the fact that these lots are being subdivided for immediate family.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. You heard it. We got a second. Mr. Kiefer. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. And carries. Second reading, consideration to approve a second reading of an application by Freddie H. Mitchell for a variance located at White Branch Road to waive restrictions of no more than 3 lots being served by an unpaved private road and allow for the creation of 2 additional home sites in the 4th district. Motion to approve second reading.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lowe, second by Mr. Kiefer to approve the second reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed no. And carries. Public hearing, number 32, planning board recommends approving an application by Jean Marie McCann in William D. Shaw to rezone 1.01 acres located at 224 Chester Street from R1 to AR2 to allow for a combination with an adjacent parcel, map number 460C, parcel number 23 in the 4th district.
So this parcel that's highlighted is actually zoned R1, and then the one next to it is AR2, and the owner want to combine them, so they need to rezone this to AR2 so they can combine it into a larger tract, or larger parcel.
Okay. Anyone tonight speaking in favor of this rezoning? Anyone speaking objection to this rezoning? We'll close the public hearing and see if there's any questions or entertain a motion from the board.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of the planning board staff recommendations.
Motion, Mr. Deloach, second, Mr. Floyd, to approve the request of staff and planning board recommendations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Carries. Second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Jean Marie McCann and William D. Shaw to rezone 1.01 acres located at 224 Chester Street from R1 to AR2 to allow for combination with an adjacent parcel, map number 460C, parcel number 23 in the 4th district. Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
Motion, Mr. Deloach, second, Mr. Floyd, to approve the second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And carries. The last public hearing for tonight, number 34. The planning board recommends approving an application from Catherine Garner for variance located at 381 Neely Road, zone AR1, from the 150-foot road frontage requirement, map number 461, parcel 21 in the 5th district.
So this is family land that is going to be subdivided, and the owners, the owners came to us about how they would go about subdividing it. This is a very informal look at how they intend to break it up. So because it was going to be 4 parcels, the first thought was that this is technically a major subdivision. And before they hired a surveyor, they wanted to make sure that everything was good, that this is their proposed parcel split. But the strip at the bottom of the arrow is a 60-foot wide strip that is proposed to connect the interior parcel to the road. But of course, that is less than the 150 feet required for AR1 land, road frontage for AR1 zoned land. So staff suggested that they come through with a request for a variance from that road frontage requirement to accommodate their desire for a 60-foot strip of land rather than an easement, which would actually eliminate the problem. Kathy, who's designated to receive that land, wants to have road frontage, but doesn't necessarily need, Gail is going to receive the strip, doesn't necessarily need 150 feet, just wants 60. So it's more of a family agreement that 60 feet is the width of that strip, but our requirement is that it be 150 feet, so that's why we're here tonight. And because it doesn't meet the requirements, staff have recommended denial, the planning board did recommend approval.
Somebody help me, why do we have 150 foot on an AR1? 25 feet on a residential lot?
That question, actually had that discussion with Commissioner Loper on this particular property. And it does go back to the question that we had about the flag lots, whether or not, that is something that we would like to approve because it does provide ownership or an effective driveway versus simply an easement, where if they wanted to put an easement there for 60 feet, they wouldn't have required a variance, but since they want to own it, they do. So it just seemed to be a little bit of a discrepancy there, and it could be one of those things we look in when we revamp the ordinances.
Okay, so that makes sense. So you're not talking about the property itself, you're talking about the little flag right there.
That's right.
It's not 150 feet. And you should have 150 foot wherever you touch the road. Okay.
That does promote, good spacing of driveways, if nothing else. So there's that, you know, having a series of flagpole, flag lots could lead to driveways being too close together.
So what's the, it didn't say in here, what's the variance to?
It's the
60?
60 feet is what's proposed.
Like the last, this is all family land too, correct?
Correct. Right, we're just trying to execute a will, that's why we're dividing it, because it was willed to us for.
And I think they're trying to maintain property adjacent to your current property, kind of split.
Right, well, I'm Connie, and I live in the spot right below the green, and then Julie, my sister, hers touches where she lives already. So Gail is the only one who doesn't live here, and so she's got that part that doesn't have the access. And
So with that area is, you guys own both sides of that 60 foot?
one, Kathy owns one side of it, the other side no.
Yeah, Kathy owns this and this, am I right? Both sides, I'm sorry, both sides of the road?
Yes.
And then we'll also be getting additional acreage.
So again?
So Kathy currently owns this and this, but we'll be getting additional acreage. So she will own all of this, and then Gail will receive this
So 60
portion.
feet is on family property.
And then Julie already owns this, I believe it's this one?
Yes.
And then Connie and this
Yeah.
one. So this is the only landlocked parcel, and their solution was to create a 60-foot strip, which is 60 foot is the right-of-way requirement, so they accomplished that rather than take 150 feet of Kathy's land. They just took the minimum to meet right-of-way, but still had issues with bringing, because this is all in preparation for creating a survey, and I wouldn't be able to bring a survey to you for approval that didn't meet our ordinance requirements. So.
Is there a road there now where that 60 foot is?
No, there is no road there.
Okay, so you're gonna build an access road there on that 60 foot?
She will.
Guess that's what
It
we
probably
should do,
won't.
is it?
I mean, I think they probably access it through your property.
She can access
Yeah,
it through
it's
us.
legal access.
This kind of what we just dealt with, it's a 60 foot, you have to maintain it yourself, and
This is all family property. and all
It's family property.
So-
Okay. Anyone else tonight speaking for or against this variance?
Appreciate it, you do it.
Anyone speaking for or against this?
I'm Miss Garner. That's the rest of the family back there, yes.
They give us the eye right now.
Yeah, they like, please do this.
So we'll meet us in
And ma'am, what's your name?
Connie, Facebook.
All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing, see no one speaking against it, and entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve with planning board recommendations.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Deloach to approve the planning board's planning board recommendations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And it carries. Second reading, consideration to approve the second reading of the application by Captain Garner for a variance located at 381 New Road, Zone AR1, from 150-foot road frontage requirement, map number 469, parcel number 21, Gill District. Motion.
Make a motion to approve second reading.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kiefer, second by Mr. Floyd to approve the second reading. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. It passes. That concludes our public hearings tonight, and all of our business that we go back and verify that we do not have a need for executive session tonight. No need for executive session, so I'll mark that off. There's no executive session minutes to approve. So is there any other business from the board? We have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Burdette, and I think stronger voice was Mr. Deloach over there. So all in favor, say aye. Opposed? We are